Do you like playing small games? Do you want to be introduced to more of them? Check out Indie Hellzone. Indie Hellzone is a weekly blog that aims to cover a wide spectrum of indie games, though there's a pretty strong preference for RPG Maker games. The website is ad-free, though you can support this endeavour through the host's Patreon. Go to indiehellzone.com or follow at indiehellzone on Twitter.
Okay, here we go. In 3, 2, 1.
Ladies and gentlemen, you are now listening to RPG Maker Cola.
Hey RPG Maker Cola listeners, welcome to RPG Maker Cola Season 2. We are the most premium brand of soda in the game development sphere. There's just one big sphere made up of blackened space, little islands floating within it, water sticking to their surfaces because of cute gravity, and within this game development sphere where all the developers live, including RPG Maker, devs, artists, musicians, players, and there you are, the listener. The one who uses their ears to observe, their tongue to taste the goodness that is the most premium of soft drinks. You better know it's RPG Maker Cola, the fizzy, soda-filled source of content for game development opinions that mean very little in the grand scheme of things. It's your favorite RPG Maker podcast, RPG Maker Cola. Oh, there are others too, Studio Blue podcast and stuff that have been... Anyway, I'm your host Benny, also known as Cash, also known as the Puzzle Snob, also known as your conduit, your river, a single swan song of silliness, and this is the place for you. It's a chill space where we get together skilled developers from the RPG Maker community to chat cordially and occasionally non-cordially about game development, game design, and probably a whole bunch of unrelated other stuff too. It's casual, it's cool, it's cola. Today I have 3 guests. And yes, they are great. They're very intrinsic to the RPG Maker community as a whole. One might say they're grafted in like a branch using a horticultural technique whereby tissues of plants are joined so as to continue their growth together. And just like a grafted branch, we're going to grow and learn together with these 2 parties who have helped us to grow and learn in community. Our first guest is actually 2 guests. Yes, they have 2 minds. Yes, they are 2 people, but also one soul. I don't know how it works. They agree. They swim together like 2 synchronized divers. They are a husband and wife game development team that specializes in teaching game design and writing tips and critically analyzing games. They stream on Twitch. They create YouTube videos, Let's Plays, giving first impressions on RPG Maker games, live stream mapping, providing in-depth critique for those who wish it, and teaching the fundamentals of good design, critically analyzing and assisting indie developers on making any game using any engine. Having been a mainstay on YouTube and spearheading a booming community on Discord, I'm extremely happy to introduce these 2 great artists. It's Steel and Teal from Studio Blue.
Hey there.
Hey.
Glad to join you.
Thank you for having us.
It's not the usual intro you might expect from Studio Blue.
Shall we do it for you? Let's do it.
Would you like it? We can do it.
Let's do it.
All right.
Okay, sure thing.
Here
Let's
we go. Hello, everyone. I'm Steel.
And I'm Teal.
And we're with Studio Blue. There.
There we go. I'd like to introduce our second guest party, but third person, if you will. This guest is a self-professed rantagonist. Their interests are board games, TTRPGs, that's tabletop RPGs, sci-fi, fantasy, and they are an RPG Maker community manager as well. They're also listed as a marketing consultant for Digica. There's so many different roles that I see thrown around for them, I don't know which one's true, but they probably do it all. And I've seen them around since I joined the RPG Maker web forums, which is a long time ago. Being generally helpful in facilitating various community events seems to be their thing, which currently apparently is creating some video content and walkthroughs and sometimes collaborating with our first guest, Studio Blue. They have been dedicated to serving the community for a long time. Their account was made in 2012, but I'm sure it goes way beyond that. I'm very happy and proud to introduce this wonderful community inspiration, Touchfuzzy or Touch.
Hello. So, yeah, I do all those things. I've done more things that I've never probably listed. But yeah, I do pretty much everything. For a while, I was the official voice for English RPG Maker. There are more people now, and that's nice. But yeah, that's me.
Ah, yes, Touch, the one who does everything.
Except finish a game.
Yeah, well, that's probably the hardest beast to slay of all.
The greatest challenge of all.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thanks to all of you, thanks to the guests and the listeners. And now that we are well acquainted, it is Buzz Corner time. Hey, welcome to the Buzz Corner. Here we're going to talk about what RPG Maker games have been gaining buzz at the moment for us. It could be new or old. There's no rules. We just do what we like. And I've asked our guests if we can think of a game to bring one game to talk about that they'd be pretty interested in. They don't have to play it. It just has to look interesting to them. But I have played this game. It is Wine and Roses. And it is quite a classic RPG game on my home site of rpgmaker.net, created by Craze. It's built in RPG Maker VX Ace, but what is very interesting about this, actually let me summarize it first of all. The summary says, 3 exorcists are led by the skeletal Lord Francisco into his usurped home, the magnificent Fort Adder. Only by seeking out ancient spirits that offer unique gifts to the heroines can they hope to purge Francisco's fortress of evil within. And there's like this fortress that you go through and non-linearly kind of explore all these different nooks and crannies, and it's got that kind of post-battle heal mechanic to it, where after you've finished a fight, then all your characters get healed, and you get the items behind them, so they're like standing encounters, and it's like a maze of like encounters and treasures. But what I really like about Craze's games is, well, they're notorious for being like super long, I suppose, but also they're very gameplay focused. And it's neat to have RPG Maker game where narrative is not like, well, there's a lot of RPG Maker games where narrative comes first and world building comes first, and then I suppose you have to make a battle system after that. But with this, the battle system is front and center, and it's clear that the battles are like the central part of the game. So they've got a lot of curious things when you sort of go into the first battle. There's things like sanity, and you have actions per character, and it's a little bit confusing. You're like, wait a minute, this is not at all your traditional, this is not attack magic item run. This is something completely different and strange, and it might take a little while getting used to. And in fact, that's the entire game, just getting used to all the different mechanics one by one. But you're kind of also just thrown in the deep end, so it doesn't really care about your sanity as you go into the learning curve. And it's actually gained quite a cult following because of that. 13,000 downloads, and just a general, like, it got some Masao Awards, which are the RPGmaker.net version of the Oscars. And like, yeah, I love this game. It's a great game, and I will return to it whenever I like. It's Wine and Roses. How about you, Teal? Which game are you bringing today? What's been buzzing for you?
Well, I've decided to bring Trailblazer by Will Black, and I'll be honest, I'm a little surprised this game has not come up yet, because it is very much a rising star in the RPG Maker community. It is a love letter to spaghetti westerns of old, The Man with No Name, the Clint Eastwood movies, and even Tombstone and some of the more modern westerns. It is a western that takes place, I believe, in the Dakota Territories during the latter parts of the 1800s. It follows a main character named John Smith, who is, well, in many ways, a man with no name, a wanderer, a drifter, and his adventures in the Black Hills. And what I really like about it is not only is it very heavily narrative and character driven, Will Black is a very good writer, exceptional so. And but it gives a lot of choices to the players, choices in how you go into combat, all your different abilities depending on whether you go the gunslinger or the marksman route. Gives you a lot of variety in how you approach a battle. There's a cover mechanic that lessens damage, but also slows down, speeds up how quickly status ailments recover. It's just, there's so many ways you can approach things, and each problem that you go into, whether it be zombies attacking a town or dealing with an outlaw attack, you have multiple ways you can deal with it. Not always fighting. In fact, you can run from almost any battle in the game. It's just, there's so many ways that the game is playable, depending on what your play style is and your narrative choice. The options are there. Will has gone through a lot of trouble to make this a highly customizable experience for the player, and really has stretched the narrative level of what an RPG Maker game can be. I love old school games like To the Moon that are, it's one
Yeah.
narrative, very beautiful, very strong. This one is kind of like a choose your own adventure book for an RPG Maker game where, a bad choice won't lead to instant death. It just leads to another story branch. And I love that. And the man himself is an extremely contributing member of the community. He's always there to offer advice on game development, design, level design, writing. He's just a joy to be around.
Oh, I love the look of this game, the flavor of this game as well. Westerns as an RPG. It's
If
great.
you love Westerns, please check this game out. Give Will the love. He deserves it. This game needs to just be skyrocketed up to the stratosphere.
I mean, and just in general, I appreciate when we see genres that aren't just fantasy again, medieval fantasy again. That's like almost every game is medieval fantasy, and occasionally you get a sci-fi game. Western's like kind of unique.
It is, and Teal and I, one of our favorite movies is Tombstone.
Yes, it is.
We watch Tombstone at least once or twice, a quarter, and to play this game, it had that flavor.
It did.
And it has Calamity Jane,
Which I love.
Oh, a must.
and it does it without it being like so campy that it's too much. So it's a great game.
It seems like it has a lot of like custom systems as well, because like skill trees that you can buy. I'm seeing a lot of custom graphics for the skill trees. Like it's not just your built-in like RPG Maker systems. There's a lot of things that I don't think I've seen in like standardized scripts. It seems that they've janked it up. They've like changed it up enough to warrant like it looks different. Like I wouldn't. Yeah, a lot of these I haven't seen in this form.
Well, Will uses a lot of the custom plugins that are available in the community, Yanfly, Olivia, but he uses them in unique ways. So he'll use the Octopath battle system that Olivia created, but then he'll use these other plugins uniquely to just give that extra customization. So yes, while it's all community-driven plugins, I don't know if there's any custom ones that he created. He's using them in a way that brings that unique flavor out. So, it just goes to show that you can have, like Touch said, a Western game, a game that's not medieval fantasy and doesn't have the same type of, Mog Hunter particle effects for the menu. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but it's its own. It's its own game.
And I can't remember which tiles these are. This, I think it's Mac Blue, might be like the style or something. I'm not sure if it's Mac Blue.
It's maybe First Seed, Mac Blue. I'm not really a expert when it comes to the tile sets.
But I feel like they've used it in a way that's very compositionally right. It feels right. Things seem in proportion, and I was actually surprised. I was thinking, oh, it's a game using like RTP graphics I've seen elsewhere, but it doesn't remind me of those games. It feels very much its own things, and it has some 3D rendered backgrounds for the battles, which are really interesting.
What he did, and he actually talked about it on the Studio Blue server once, we were like, this is amazing. He took the 3D plugin that creates the game in 3D, turned it on, grabbed screenshots for the stuff he wanted as the battle backgrounds, then turned the plugin off for the game itself and used those as the battle backs.
Oh wow. Yeah, the three there's a three, so it creates it generates 3D maps from the 2D maps that he's already drawn. You're saying, and then he kind of walks around them and okay,
takes screenshots then he turns it off so that the game itself is in 2D the way he wants it, but he uses those 3D maps as the battle backs. It's quite ingenious.
That's funny because that means that the battle backs will always, I guess, accurately represent what the maps look like in real life, sort of thing.
100%. It goes to show if you put a little bit of extra care into every aspect of your game, it shows really quickly.
You're talking about the concept of taking different plugins and putting them together in unique ways. And it's something that I think more people need to try to do, because you get like people, and I love the Vistastella plugins, but they just pile in all the Vistastella plugins and just use them as is. But there's so much you could do if you just moved a little bit here, a little bit there, that would create something unique and not cookie cutter feeling.
Yeah, Yeah.
Right, as well as only using the plugins that are necessary for your game design, for what your paradigm for your game is, instead of just throwing them all in. I don't think there's a single plugin that Will uses for Trailblazer and other games out there that they don't belong. There's no bloat, and I prefer to see no bloat when we look at a game. And the levels are well designed too. So I mean, just overall, go check out Trailblazer.
Good choice. Yeah. Teal, what's been buzzing for you lately?
This is a game that I didn't actually get to play because I was out recovering from surgery, but Steele played it and I watched the video and followed up a lot more on it. It's called Mare by Z Makes Games, and it is a horror RPG. Now, don't know if you guys know this, but I love horror. And horror RPGs, good ones, are hard to come by.
Mm-hmm.
As Touch said, you have a lot of medieval and fantasy, and I've seen sci-fi, but a really good horror is a gem. And this game really strikes me as being a very good representation of horror RPGs. From what I saw, it had very good pacing. The story, I was engaged in it.
Yeah.
The whole time that I was watching the video, I just I didn't get distracted not once. It had such a good pacing with the story, and I was just very invested. I wanted to know what happens, what's happening, what's going on. As seen through the eyes of the main character, I was trying to figure out, as in any good horror game, what's really happening.
The big question.
Yeah. And it really grabbed my attention and kept it. That's not an easy feat nowadays.
Right.
I've gotten real picky with my games in the last couple of years. And this is one of those that just really stands out to me. I want to say that games that use original artwork, to me, have a lot more going for them than just using your standard assets. If a developer puts in the time to create custom artwork, that's a level of love that I feel needs to be promoted.
Yeah.
No, I agree. I like it when someone is obviously putting forth that extra effort. And I do remember playing Mare because, like Teal said, she was out recovering from surgery when I played it. There was definitely that extra love with those graphics, the different face sets and busts for the main character and his friends.
And for his friends and the supporting cast, there was a lot of attention to make each of the characters drawn uniquely.
Yeah.
And I felt all the characters were interesting, not just the main character Naomi, but all of Naomi's friends and classmates. The whole thing takes place in a school, which is awesome because it's either a school or an asylum, right?
Right. Yeah.
The chapter that I got to, I think it goes beyond that as he kind of changes worlds. But I do remember that the main focus of that was the school chapter.
Was the school chapter, which I think I love school settings. I watch those Japan horror things, and the crazy schoolgirl. Yeah. But this game really has a good creepy atmosphere. If you love exploration and searching for the truth, and lots of environmental storytelling, you're really going to like this game. I know I do. And the fact that the monsters in here are creepy students.
Yeah.
I mean, you should just see that custom artwork that they have for the creepy student monster. It was yummy.
I was saying, if I recall, it starts off so fluffy and bright and colorful and descends into dark really Like it's a stark turn to darkness.
Which I love that.
Yeah.
You know, Silent Hill starts off like that too. You know, you start off kind of normally and then boom.
Well, the thing is, and I was watching when you played it the first time. One thing is that Steele said repeatedly that Teal would have loved to have been here for this. So at least he gets credit for being right about that. But also,
yes, he does.
The beginning, not only is it fluffy, but there's like those little touches where you can tell something just is a little off. You know how like kind of like a Stepford thing where like everything seems great, but like there's something a little wrong right behind it. And it was really like good little touches. And then when it finally turns, and you were talking about like the idea of the mystery of it, and I thought that was probably the best thing for me about that game was it had so much mystery to it that I really wanted to know what was happening. And in a lot of games, you need that driving force forward. And I think that it did it really good with that, with the mystery. Yes,
it does. I mean, it really pulls you in. And for me, I didn't want to put it out. I didn't want the video to end. I was like, come on, play some more.
And I got to give the developer props on this. After we did that playthrough, after I did that playthrough, Z Makes Games contacted me several times and says, hey, if you want to look beyond it, I'll listen, because he really liked the advice we gave him during the video. And he kept soliciting more feedback after the fact. And I really appreciated that because it showed that he wanted to take the community-driven feedback and our professional feedback and try to make the game even better. And that's very touching as a critiquer. When we put forth that time to give critical feedback, and then someone says, hey, not only was that good, but I feel that if I give you this, maybe you can give me more and I can get better. And that touches us right in the heart.
So I'm pretty sure that the next release of Mayor is going to be epic. I can't wait.
Same here.
Yeah, I mean, you were talking about the location of the school as a place for horror. For a lot of people, including myself, one doesn't need to insert horror elements for school to be horrifying to return to.
I occasionally have that dream, and it's not good.
Never is. Never is. I believe after the school, it goes to like an office building type level in like a slightly futuristic world.
Yeah, it has like a sci-fi thing going after that one.
Yeah, but it's still the same thing of there's something dead wrong about what's going on with Naomi. And it's just you get more and more delved into this madness. And I mean, I really want to see this game too take off.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like it just kind of slowly escalates and just it has that masterful sort of handle of tone and pacing that can really make or break a horror game. Because I've seen horror games kind of get broken by inconsistent pacing and tone, I suppose. And because it can be like scare after scare, and it's like, okay, what am I actually being scared about? But it sounds like this kind of has like subtle changes that keep you on edge and don't really spend it all at once, so to say.
That's it exactly. Yes.
Yeah, 100%.
Tone and atmosphere. Gotta get that in a horror game. Yeah, that looks great. I want to play that game now. Or I can watch the Studio Blue playthrough. We'll see. We'll see which one I choose to. If I'm not too scared to play it myself.
Check it out on Degaka's YouTube.
Ah, yes. There we go. Degaka's YouTube. We'll watch it there. Thanks for that game. Touch, what are you bringing today?
So, Steele and Teal both got these like huge epic style games. And actually, I'll say this. I don't think anyone should make an epic style game as their first game. Early on, you should be focusing on making something small and contained. So there was a contest we ran in October that I played during a contest we did. It was horror games. It was called Harvest Time. And it actually did not place, but I think it was the best game. And the reason it did not place was because I didn't think the horror elements were as good, but the gameplay of it is probably by far the best. Harvest Time is by Eleanor the Dark. And so it's a mix of a farming sim, but also an RPG. And one of the things that struck me about it was the character progression was very different. I got confused at first when I got into my first fight, and I didn't get any experience. because the only way you gain experience in the game is by farming. So I have to go out and get money to help afford like seeds and stuff, and I have to beat certain bosses to get access to certain types of seeds. And I can find equipment out in the wild. But what I'm doing is coming back and then farming and planting my stuff and harvesting it so that I can then go up in levels to take on bigger stuff to get other kinds of plants to grow.
Oh, that's brilliant.
And it was just this thing where it was like, okay, this is just so different from what I'm used to playing. And another thing is we had different types of farm animals, and you could find farm animals out in the wild to bring back. You're like, wait, this doesn't go out here in the middle of these creepy woods. Let's take them back to my farm and put them on there. And you got healing items, different types of milk from the farm animals whenever you got an item that let you feed them again. So as you found more, every single time you did it, you would get more healing items. So it had like all these different progressions that were a lot different from what I was used to. And it was, I want to say about an hour long, maybe an hour and a half. I know T from Driftwood Gaming was also one of our judges, and she said that was the one she played the longest. She played all the way to the end of it. But it was such a good game from a perspective of design. It also looks pretty good. I think it's using the Time Fantasy tiles.
Looks like it, yeah.
But my brain, I see so many tiles that I kind of forget where each one comes from. But I'm 90% sure that's Time Fantasy. But it looks pretty good. The design of like the forest areas and stuff. Like the only thing that made it not score any higher was like, yeah, the horror theme was kind of pasted on. It wasn't really that important to the theme of the game. It could have just been completely normal themed, like as far as like just normal medieval fantasy farming, and the game would have been exactly the same. But still, it just such a joy to play.
I have to agree that I saw some of the videos for that particular contest, and we did a game called Carpentry Time,
Yeah.
which was kind of like a Stardew Valley kind of game.
Mm-hmm.
And this had that vibe. And, you know, those games definitely have a niche where people are like, yeah, that's what I want to do. I want to just put it in park and just farm and craft. And I mean, I agree with both things that Touch actually said. One, the horror element just felt like it was kind of pasted on top. But even more so, I have to echo, you do not want your first game to be epic. You want it to be small, self-contained, a mini project, and learn from it, hone your craft, and then slowly get better and better and better and go bigger and bigger and bigger. Because these, you know, when someone has a epic, huge, you know, multi-stage, world-spanning adventure, they're trying to balance so many pieces, and they may not even know how to properly create the game itself. The craft needs the work. Then the story can be added on later.
Well, I mean, on top of that, you go back to like, so your first game, like you said, you're going to be learning. You're going to be learning how to make things in the editor and stuff like that. And it always takes me back to when I was a teenager and I first started writing, because writing, it was one of my big passions. It still is, and I wish I wrote more. But I always tried to write something novel-sized. And the problem is you get 100 pages in, and you've gotten so much better in just those 100 pages that the first like half of what you have is complete garbage compared to what you can do now. So you're just like, well, time to throw the whole thing away and start over again. And you just do this over and over again. And if you take a small project, you can learn over it over that smaller time period, and you release something. It may not be excellent or great or amazing, but you've done something. And you can learn from that and move on to the next thing. If you start with an epic, though, you're going to get to where you're like, oh, everything at the beginning of this is just bad. And is it fixable now? And you've wasted all your time. You have nothing releasable.
I agree completely. To kind of go back to the writing bit, back when I was really getting started as a writer as well, prior to publishing, my mentor at the time said, you can learn more from writing 500 words a day and just 500 words a day than you can dropping, you know, chapters in a novel over the course of a weekend. And it's absolutely true. Small little self-contained things, whether they be game projects, writing projects, it doesn't matter. And learn from it. Learn from that small piece. Get better at your overall craft, whether it be graphics, coding, eventing, it doesn't matter.
Right.
Through that small piece. then apply it to the next small piece and keep going. And sooner or later, you'll find that you have the skill set needed to create something bigger and bigger until you have your, 12 chapter, 500-hour epic with downloadable content.
And as for this game, Harvest Time, would you say it's an effective use of a first? Is this what you're saying? Because this was a first-ish.
It was not a
project,
first game. I was just more pointing out the idea of trying something small first, and I think especially like contests are a fun way to get something first game done out, right?
Yeah.
But it was just a contest game, and I just wanted to make a comment on the whole thing of epic games versus smaller, more kind of intimate games, and that was what this was. Though I think this one could have been expanded. Like, I think if you could expand this game, I think the farming could have been a little bit more diversified. It's pretty simple in the game, but again, it was made in like a month, and you only wanted to have an hour and a half of playtime on it. But I just, the whole idea of starting small just came from my thoughts on it, not more this game. I know this person has made other games now that I think about it. I do not remember what games they are, but I think I've seen them also in other contests of ours, for that matter.
Yeah, I think that's the thing, because you in creating a lot of little games, you'll discover what works, and it seems like, for example, this game, since it's got some good reception, you think to yourself, oh, okay, this prototype, well, it might be a little long for a prototype, an hour and a half, but it works. It could be expanded to a bigger game. And that's often what we need to do, right? We need to create something small and see if the gameplay is actually functioning well, and then from there we can start expanding before, making this big RPG and then realizing, oh, the central battles are not fun.
Well, and also talking about expanding on stuff, so a lot of the things people talk about are like how original is a game is, and that's cool. And even I love original stuff in games. But the cool thing about doing a small project, and going, hey, I can expand on this, is that you get the polish that comes from something already established. Because when you're doing something completely original, it's hard to polish it because you don't have a lot of things to compare it to.
That's true. And what makes these contests, these game jams, so really good as a development learning tool is you're forcing yourself within the constraints of a deadline and whatever contest constraints there are. So the more of a box you're put in, the more you have to push your creativity or innovation. And that's where I know Teal and I have seen some of the best innovation has come from these game jam games.
Yeah.
Yeah, game jam games, they force you a deadline as well, so you have to get something done. Yeah, you don't spend years. Well, you can spend years on a game, or you can just be. But if you feel like you haven't released anything, go ahead and make a game in a month for a game jam, because it forces you to actually get something done and complete something. That's how I started. Maybe if you want to get spooked, try Mare, but if you want to have a good time farming as with the Grim Reaper, then go get Harvest Time. Yeah, thanks for... Yeah, well, that's our buzz corner. That's what's been buzzing for us. We're going to move on to our new section, which is We've Been Playing Games. Maybe... Hey you there. Yeah, passerby. Yes you. Have you been playing games? If not, that's all cool. But if so, you'd like to hear about it, you can listen here. Each of us are going to talk about a game we've been currently playing or have played in the past, and explain what we like and dislike about it. I am going to bring a game called Getting Over It with Bennett Foddy. For those who might know of the game, those who don't, obviously, it's a game where you are in a little pot. You're a man in a pot, and you have a hammer, and you push down on the ground, and you try and get up a hill. Yeah, that's the game. It's the game, but it's very hard. There's been streams and streams and streams of this game, people getting frustrated. The description of the game on Steam says, a game I made for a certain kind of person, to hurt them. Yes.
So instead of Flappy Bird, it's Smacky Hammer.
Yeah, exactly. It's like a 3D game, but it's like a platforming game, but it's the sort of game where, say to get past a certain rock, you might take 10 to 15 to even 20 minutes, or 10 to 15 minutes, and then to get past the next branch, you might take about 10 to 15 minutes there. and to get over the next house you might take 10 minutes, and then to get over this tree you'll fail and you'll fall and lose 50 minutes of progress.
Oh my god.
So this game has very high stakes all the time because you can fall from the very top of the level down to the bottom and lose hours of progress. It's a tightrope run, and that's why I think the game is very unique, and also it has the reviews on Steam say very positive, which in other words is somewhere between overwhelmingly positive and mixed, meaning some people didn't like it, but some people did, and sometimes those are some of the most interesting games. So Bennett Foddy has a very interesting perspective on game design, and I think it's really needed because I think it provides an experience that people don't really go into it, which is that of frustration and I wouldn't say hatred of the player, but a playful kind of playing around with the player's expectations. And basically, when I play this, I'll fail and lose lots of progress, and then rage quit, and then eventually you'll be drawn back. You'll come crawling back to the game. So it's sort of like it's a love-hate relationship.
This just reminds me going back to playing EverQuest when it first came out, and when you could die and lose like 2 days worth of experience and de-level.
That sounds brutal.
I just want to say to all of our viewers, we will not be playing that game on stream. Because we rage quit, we get frustrated.
Yeah, it's a black hole, and rage quitting is a feature of the game. So it's like something that
sounds like it.
It's something that you there's some fun features in the feature list. One says climb up an enormous mountain with nothing but a hammer and a pot. Listen as I make philosophical observations about the problem at hand. So there's just Bennett Foddy just kind of interjecting at random points to talk about how you're going. Between 2 and infinity hours of agonizing gameplay. Depending. The medium time to finish by playtesters is 5 hours, but the mean's closer to infinity, and you can actually finish it in something like less than 2 minutes. So, it's interesting that, you could speedrun is 2 minutes without glitches, and 5 hours is the general time. And another feature is lose all your progress over and over, feel new types of frustration you didn't know you were capable of, and, magical reward awaits hikers who reach the top. So, there's some sort of epiphany there. No spoilers, but...
Wow. The mountain was you all along.
Exactly, yeah. The mountain was your frustration.
That's. I have to say that is a very unique take. A lot of games are frustrating, not intentionally, and it angers the players, and the players have a negative reaction to it. This one sounds like it capitalizes on that, and that's unique and imaginative.
And the title as well.
Sorry, I was just having a conversation about how to what would be like the most angering thing you could do in a game, like as a designer to your players, and this just seems like someone decided to run with it.
It really does.
Yeah, and weaponize it. But the funny thing is that the gameplay is always fair. It's just very like awkward. They created a game also called QWOP, which is like a running game where you run as an athlete and you have to control all your different limbs using different keys, Q, W, O, and P. But it's very difficult, and sometimes like you get 2 meters into the race before falling over. Sometimes you get negative 10 meters because you start falling backwards. So it's very, it's even the very act of walking correctly will make players shout with joy.
All I know is that when I played QWOP, I could not get anywhere because I was laughing too hard at the bizarre movements I was making.
Exactly. It's a similar type of feeling. Same developer. Good game. And I like the title as well, Getting Over It, because it has that sort of double meaning. You're getting over the mountain, but it's the developer telling you to get over it, get over your frustrations.
Exclusively brought in on the current Humble Bundle of games for masochists.
Yeah. Brilliant. Yeah. Steele, which game would you like to bring to the table today?
Well, I do have a specific game, but I also want to talk in general about the technology behind the game. And to those who know me, they know I am a huge virtual reality VR enthusiast. I've been into VR since the HTC Vive first came out about 2, 3 years ago. So I want to preface talking about this game, talking about virtual reality in general. It gets a bad rep among people who haven't dived into it. One, it's seen as being not cost effective, and two, it's being seen as you're going to get sick. It's not, it's motion sickness inducing. And I'm not going to discount people who have legitimate motion sickness. There's a percentage of the population that, regardless of how good the technology is, they can't play VR because of their physiological reaction to it. But in
Yeah.
general, the technology keeps getting better and better, and becomes more and more cost effective, that I believe people should look more and more into it. It is a great way to create an immersive environment. And when you are playing a VR game, even if it's one that wasn't built from the ground up, like the one I'm going to bring up, it, it's an entirely different experience. Whether you're playing a horror game, which, by the way, a horror game in VR is an animal well beyond anything you can imagine. There's nothing scarier than being in a haunted house, whether it be phasmophobia, paranormal activity, and you just hear the ghost breathing down your neck. It's utterly terrifying. But VR gets a bad rep, simply because it was once so unwieldy and so difficult to get into. And there was such a dearth of good games. Like when VR first came out, there were so many crap games, people just throwing whatever they could onto Steam or the Oculus Store. And over time, the industry has matured. It's gotten over its awkward adolescence phase. And a lot of the games that are out now really take advantage of the hardware and the concept of being in a 3D environment. I mean, beyond just playing games like Skyrim VR, which that's my go-to game. It's not what I'm talking about, but that's my go-to game. You can have an immersive world where you just feel like you're in a fantasy world on a space station. It doesn't matter. Pick something.
Yeah.
The game in particular I want to talk about, though, is to me a benchmark in the VR industry, and that's Half-Life Alyx. Half-Life Alyx, which was developed by Valve, the creators of Half-Life 2 and Portal, was built from the ground up to be in VR. There is no 2D version of the game. It is meant for virtual reality and will only be for VR. And everything about the game, from the moment you start it to the moment you finish it, is geared towards being in a virtually submersed environment. Your character's hands, Alex's hands, if you grab onto something, you can push it. If you, like when you're closing a door, you don't have to grip onto it with your controller. You can literally just take your hand and push it, and you'll get that force feedback on your controller, like you're pushing on a wooden door and you're closing it. If you're opening up a drawer to check and see if there's something in it, you actually have to move your head like you would if you were kind of craning your neck to look inside this container. And for those who have mobility problems, this game helps you there too with these gravity gravity gloves, where you literally just lock onto an object and kind of force telekinetically pull it to you, and you have the items in your hand. So from the moment that you're playing the game, it's geared to be in the game in a VR experience. The narrative is amazing. If you've ever played anything by Valve, they understand on-map in-game cinema. There's no cutscenes. It's you go into an area and you're talking to a character, whether it be Russell or your father Eli or one of the various mini aliens in the game. There's never a point where the game pauses and you're in some sort of cutscene. Well, Valve has mastered that. They mastered that back during Half-Life 2 and Portal. Well, they take that to the nth level here in Half-Life Alyx. When you move around while you're talking to, like, your constant companion is a guy by the name of Russell. He's always talking to you over the radio. But when you meet him, and there's a huge table where you're kind of discussing the mission that you go on, you can move around the table and actually pick up things and put it on the map, and it kind of shows different positions while you're going over the quote-unquote battle plan. So the game itself makes you feel like you're this character, Alex Vance, inside this game. And to me, that's what VR needs to become. Plus, it's not a short experience. A lot of VR games were very short at the time, or tech demos, really. I'm looking at you, Batman Arkham VR, like with your 30 minutes of freaking gameplay. Seriously, $20 for 30 minutes. Nope. This is a full-length AAA game. This is like you're buying Bioshock or Bioshock Infinite. You're buying a full game that's going to last 20, 30, 40 hours. And that's not even including DLC and mod content, community content. So when I first started playing Half-Life Alyx and I got over being in love with it, I started looking at it as this is where that industry, that technology needs to go. They need to all take a hint from this game and apply that kind of storytelling, narrative, interactivity with the world itself. And I truly believe that VR is not a fad. It is here to stay, and games like that prove it.
Absolutely, because it's only the technology that's going to improve and provide us with better opportunities to utilize it. So getting in and providing the game design or meta, I suppose, like who better to do that than the creators of Half-Life, they know game design. You need someone to go through and say, okay, we've done a little bit of testing, experimentation, these are the things that work. Because it's well known that I suppose Steam and are quite test-driven developers. So
they really are.
They have a lot of testing and they change their games a lot due to their testing process. Some would say almost overly so, because they I've heard ideas about Portal and things. Anyway, but something like Half-Life Alyx, a great start. I'd also like to shout out games like Astrobot, Rescue Mission, PlayStation VR exclusive. Apparently that does some really, I've seen some videos, does some really nice things with VR and things that feel comfortable gameplay-wise. Yeah, you expect that from the kind of inventiveness, from Nintendo's recent Mario series, sort of like the Super Mario Galaxy kind of intuitiveness.
There's a lot of that, and it's becoming more and more prevalent. There was a game out about 1.5 years, 2 years ago called A Mage's Tale, which was put out by the creators of A Bard's Tale. In fact, it's in that universe of Scour Bray. So we know before Half-Life Alyx, companies were starting in that direction, and it's my belief that with games like Alyx being out, they'll continue to do that. Plus, the technology is becoming more and more affordable. You can get an Oculus Rift for, I think it's like about $300-400 now, when it used to be like $700, $800, $900. It's only the higher end headsets, which are there mostly for pro gamers and streamers, are the ones that'll cost you upwards of $1,000. It's getting cheaper and cheaper because the technology, as it's refined, is getting easier to mass produce with quality. So it's going to come to the point where getting a VR system and a VR headset is the same as getting a PlayStation 4.
I mean, it's the same as those big widescreen TVs. When they first came out, they're so expensive. And now you can just go to Walmart and get one for $200. But I've never actually played a VR game, ever. We've published a few at Digica. And I had a chance when I was at an event, we had a VR headset set up for one of our games, but I never got around to it. The one thing I've always wondered, though, is because it would be it'd be an interesting experience for me specifically, because I'm blind in my right eye. So I only have one eye that works. So I'm like, how would that affect my ability to use VR and see, I could still look around, but if anything was meant to mostly be on that right screen, I can't see it.
Yeah.
Well, the way the lenses work is it's mimicking, slightly to the one side, each lens. So it's meant to mimic your actual real vision. So I would assume, and I don't know this, but I would assume it would be like looking at the world how you look at it now, except a computer generated world. That's my guess.
I would think so too. And I'm interested in trying it. And especially as things start coming down in price, and I can easily afford it. My thing was I couldn't afford it to do it, and just I didn't like it. So now it's coming to that kind of sense of it's a fun toy, and I buy way too many fun toys that I spend too much money on and then never use. So it's in that price range now.
Totally. I would I would be the mouthpiece for any VR ever. I would always say, play VR. Here's the reason why. Go play VR. Because the immersion in it alone creates that feeling of oneness with your environment. I mean, take Teal, for example. Teal's one of those people that fast moving VR games will give her motion sickness.
Yep, it does.
But there's a number of games we have for the Vive that she's able to play that's literally like just meditation and exploration games.
Right. My favorite, of course, is being the underwater one.
Yeah, the Blue, which is, she gets to sit there in a coral reef and watch turtles and sharks and other little creatures fly by, or down in a trench where the octopi are.
Yes. Yeah.
And
another favorite one is another thing for VR. I just want to throw this out is being an armchair traveler.
Yes.
Especially in today's times where you can't just hop a plane and go somewhere now. VR is a good substitute. Seriously. When am I ever going to get to Iceland? I don't know.
Right.
But I can get into VR and experience walking along a cliffside.
Right.
Or just walking around in a what's grassy, rocky terrain.
Right, exactly. Like there's a game, there's a free app for Valve called The Lab. So anyone who has a Vive or a Vive Pro or any of Valve's Steam VR compatible headsets can play in this thing called The Lab, and they allow you to walk around in a mountain in Iceland. I think it's like a lava tube in Hawaii. I'm not sure exactly where it is, but there's a number of little virtual locations that are captured using 3D photogrammetry. So it's real. It looks real, and that's that kind of like what Teal's talking about. The armchair traveling is, I'll never get to this place. I'll never see what it's like on the top of Mount Everest. But a crew went up there and they took an actual 3D rendering of what the summit of Everest looks like.
Yeah, exactly.
Now I can go to that summit. And that's, to us, I mean, that's beyond just the games. That's what VR is also going to be about.
Well, and like you said, especially right now, you can't go anywhere.
Right.
So being able to virtually travel somewhere. I wonder when we're going to start doing virtual reality meetings.
Oh, I'm down with that. I'm down. I'm there.
That would be fun.
It has to be better than Zoom, right? Like, Zoom feels so weird. All I do is look at my own face on the Zoom call and go, I look bizarre. Am I looking attentive enough?
Yeah.
There should be the default setting on Zoom where you just can't see yourself.
I think, what was it? When we used to do a lot of Zoom meetings, you'd always be like, Steele, why are you looking down at the lower left-hand corner of your camera? Because I'm looking at myself. People look dumb.
Here's the thing, though.
So,
that's what everyone else is doing, too. No one's looking at you unless you're talking.
Yeah. Exactly. So I agree, Touch. I think at some point virtual meetings will be a thing. I mean, you can technically get together with people. Like if you have a Steam VR compatible set, and I do, we can technically get it together in these different home spaces, which can be anything from like a mountain lodge to the TARDIS, and we can just BS. So why can't you have a full-scale meeting in there? Just encrypt the channel and boom, no one can get in unless they have the password. So the technologies really can go anywhere.
We've only scratched the surface with regard to like virtual reality, cinema even, but bringing it back to games, there's another application that I think is really interesting, which is a game called Beat Saber, it's sort of like a
freaking love
VR version of slashing some the beats of adrenaline pumping music as they fly towards you, surrounded by a futuristic world in VR. And I think the reason why I bring that up is because the exercise possibilities of VR as well. They've been kind of long sort of thought about. You could combine VR with a treadmill or something or some kind. It seems to be that when you're using VR, you use your arms, you use yourself to, so there's exercise possibilities in there as well. You don't have to go out for a run in real life. You could just go for a VR run, I guess.
Oh, heck yeah. There's a game called Blade and Sorcery, which if you want to get your sword swinging on, that's the one. And one of the ones I got on a bundle is called Creed, and it's based on Apollo Creed, the character from Rocky, and it's a boxing simulator. So if rhythm games like Beat Saber aren't your thing, there's tons of ways to get great cardio in virtual reality.
Yeah.
Just don't video yourself while doing it. You might be disappointed that your punches don't quite look like Creed's.
So, full true story. No matter who you are, you look like a dork in VR. You do not look as cool as it looks inside the game. That's just
No, you
accept
don't.
that.
Hey, Teal, what games have you been playing?
Okay, well, I'm going off in the opposite direction, away from VR. um, a game that I'm currently playing now is part of a larger series. That this is Atelier Fierce. This game is part of the Mysterious arc. There's actually 3 games in this arc. It started off with Atelier Sophie, and then you have Atelier Fierce, and then finally Atelier Lydia and Suelle. Right now, I'm on the second game, Atelier Fierce. And the whole reason I picked up this game, these series of games, is for the crafting. Because I love crafting. It doesn't matter what game I play, whether it's ESO or I don't know.
Pick a game.
Pick a
Skyrim,
game. Fallout, Skyrim, whatever. I immediately start doing my crafting. And this game was I first looked at it, the series, and it's all about making stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I got into it. And it's kept my attention because it's more than just crafting. You know, it's not another Stardew Valley. It is so much more than that. It is you get invested. There's a story. There's an overarching story with the series, and there is a story in each game. And you get to know the characters. They're very well fleshed out. There's not a single throwaway character in these games. And each character has their own unique fighting style and costume. It's very much like a JRPG in the way it's animated and presented. But it is, at the very base of it, it's all about gathering recipes and crafting items. And you use these items when you go out in the world to fight monsters and get more items, more materials, more mats.
Yes.
That's basically the gameplay loop, is go out, get your mats, make your items, use these items to help you go out and gather more mats.
The first time that I ever saw Teal play Atelier, how do you pronounce it? Sophie, which was the first one she ever played.
That's the first one, yeah.
I was like, okay, so this is Matt gathering the game. And all she said was, yep, which is Teal's thing.
Yeah, but it's so much more than that. As I said, each game has its own little story, and then there's 3 games in this arc, so there's an overarching story arc.
Right.
But I do want to focus on Atelier Fierce. That game, it took what you learned in the first one, Sophie, and it focuses on the relationships, the relationship that Fierce has with the people around her, the people that she meets, and even characters that start off as maybe antagonistic towards Fierce, they end up coming around and they become perhaps like friendly rivals.
Yeah,
something like that. There's no, I hate to use the word, but for lack of a better word, there's no ugliness in the games. There's no meanness, or darkness rather. It's very positive. It's a positive emotional experience to be playing in this game. The main character, of course, is your plucky heroine. Her personality is sweet, but at the same time, she has some spice to her. She does say some snarky things, and it's hilarious.
Yeah.
She's not all sweetness and light. Trust me.
Not a Mary Sue.
No, she's not a Mary Sue. She makes mistakes. She stumbles. She can make bad decisions. But through it all, she maintains a positive attitude, and that's a good driving point with the Atelier Fierce game, is the feeling of positivity that you get while you're playing it. It's not just all about the mat gathering and crafting. You care about this person. You want little Fierce to succeed. You want her friends to succeed. And this particular story, I know I'm kind of popping all over the place here, but
Yeah.
the main story, if you will, only takes place during half the game. It's her becoming a licensed alchemist. That's the main story. And once you complete that, then it's completely open world. You can go anywhere, which I love open world, by the way.
Mhm.
You can go anywhere and enjoy whatever stories come out. And each section of the world has maybe a different character kind of hanging out in there. So you get to know them, and it's driven by character stories. And another thing I like about the Ferris game is that it brings back characters that you've already met in the first game of Sophie. And it was a real treat to see, oh, that character was over here in Sophie, and now it's 10 years later, and now they're over here. And how did they get from there to here? And you learn the character's little story.
I have to throw that out real quick because, again, I'm not a player of the Atelier series. I watched Teal play it, and she talked. We'll be having dinner, and she'll be talking about the game she's played or something like that, and I'll ask questions. And the one of the Atelier series I'm familiar with is Esker and Logi. And the reason I'm familiar with it is because we're using their battle system as a visual basis for our game. The thing is that I got to know these characters in this game while I was researching it. And I was stoked to find out that these characters that are part of a different trilogy completely show up in Ferris. So what I love is world continuity.
They do a very good job of maintaining a consistent world.
Yes.
As Steele said, the world continuity. People just don't disappear. It's a living, breathing world. So characters you've met before in previous games, they're going to be around somewhere. And that's really fun when oh my gosh, you discover this character and they're over here. Well, why are they over here? Well, their journey took them there. In Ferris, you do come up upon Sophie and Plachta, who were the main characters in the first game. So that was really fun.
I like the fact that, and it was Teal who said this, so if I may paraphrase you, please.
Okay, sure.
She was saying the end of one person's story is not the end of their life, ergo, therefore, they'll continue to show up in other people's stories.
Yes, they will.
And I've seen very few series do that.
Well, I mean, it's the one thing of very few series are all in the same world. Suikoden did a lot of that. Where characters would appear in multiple stories, but usually they start Final Fantasy, Dragon Quest. Mostly they start all over, with the exception of a few in Dragon Quest that are connected.
Right, but it's world continuity. Which, if you're going to have a series of, even if the stories are not connected, if the world's connected, you should have a continuity. And most series that I've seen don't have the courage to do that. They isolate them and put them in different little buckets. And maybe you'll hear something about them over here, over there. You'll have the teases like with Dragon Age. There'll be, you'll have your Dragon Age origin stuff, and you'll have like one scene with Alistair or Honora or whoever is the king or queen of Ferelden in Dragon Age 2. And then you'll get, a mention of something in Inquisition. Like, it was a huge deal that Varric, the dwarf, is a playable character in both Dragon Age 2 and Inquisition, but most games just don't do that unless it's a direct trilogy like Mass Effect.
Right.
Yeah.
But this series does do that. So not to hammer a point, but a character that you meet in the first game, Sophie, you'll meet them later on in their life path in Ferris.
Yeah, and this is like, what, 15 some odd games?
Yeah, it is. And as you said, the character of Logi,
yeah,
he shows up again. He was in Sophie and he's in Ferris.
Wow.
He's the blacksmith, and it's just really cool.
So I have a question, because I haven't played the specific one you're talking about. I played Atelier Riza, and one of the things from that game specifically, and this is going back to the crafting section. One, the crafting in Atelier is not, I wouldn't say like overly complex, but like not simple either. Like, there's very detailed stuff you can do and very customizable items. But one of the things that struck me and actually inspired something I'm doing in the current game I'm making in RPG Maker is I hate consumable items.
Right.
I just do. I save them all game and never use them. And one of the things in Rizza is that you could equip consumable items into slots that use a different type of resource and don't disappear.
Yeah,
Right.
that's
And
exactly.
that was such a smart idea. I'm like, oh, I can just use. Don't have the game I'm currently working on doesn't have consumables at all. Instead, your items go into a specific slot and they use a specific crystal thing, which is actually the currency in the game. And you use that instead to use them. And you can use them as many times as you want as long as you have that resource.
Yeah.
Wow.
And
Yeah, and then
it's
also,
a very different concept that I played Rizza and I'm like, oh, that's so neat. And it fixes a problem I have in RPGs. And,
Yeah.
that's why you should play a lot of games.
You really should. I mean, to get to let me start over there. To get to the philosophy of it all, if you're going to be a game developer, play a lot of games. It's like if you're going to be a writer, read a lot of books. You're going to be a film director, watch a lot of films. So I agree completely with that. Like I said, my knowledge of the Atelier series is probably the weakest out of the three of us, and I find that to be fascinating. That's a feature, apparently, Teal.
yes, it is.
So
yeah.
that's kind of awesome.
And
Never would have thought of that.
I just want to kind of wind up my discussion of Fierce by saying that if you love spreadsheets, you're going to love these games because let me tell you, I'm a completionist and I have to get every single recipe and combination, and that is where the intrigue and the puzzle solver in me comes out, because it's not handed to you. You have to find this stuff. In Fierce especially, you have to go everywhere in the world so that she gets ideas for recipes, and then you have to develop the recipes. And it's really, they got great mechanics. I can't say enough how good the crafting mechanic is in this game. Now, let me tell you, there is one big negative about it, and I need to warn you now. The first part of the game, what we call the main story, is timed. You have a certain amount of time to get Ferris from point A to point Z, where she becomes an alchemist.
See, this is actually why I played Rizza, is because I know that all the other ones are timed and Rizza isn't.
Sophie is not timed.
Oh, really? Okay.
The first game in the Mysterious arc is not timed, I believe, but Fierce is, at least for the first part of the game. You have 360 days to get from one place to your ultimate destination, and it ain't easy, because here's another thing you got to be aware of. There's no real fast travel system in this game. You can warp around to different points within a region, but you cannot warp between regions. You have to walk, buddy.
See, I think that would, and it's good that Teal's mentioning that, because to me that is a turnoff. Now, granted, Sophie and Rizza, and there's probably a few others, don't have that, but in my looking into the Atelier series just to research Esker and Lagi, that's one of the features. So most of the Atelier games are timed, at least the first half. And to me, I don't like to play a game that has a win or lose time limit on its main story. I don't mind if quests expire. I don't mind if once a certain event starts, I have X number of in-game time units to complete it.
Right.
But the whole game where the main quest can be failed regardless of how good you are from start to finish if you don't complete main goal, I don't like that. Some people love it, but to me, that's a turnoff.
See, I just have too much desire to mess around in games. I just want to mess around in games all the time, and any kind of time limit puts me off of games too.
I did do a little bit of messing around, but not much. Honestly, you don't get to really explore the open world till after you become a licensed alchemist and the time clock disappears. Then you have complete freedom to explore.
Yeah, it'd be like if I was playing Skyrim and I had one in-game year to defeat Alduin or the world ends. I'd be like, no, sir.
Hmm.
I got College of Winterholds and Dark Brotherhood stuff to do.
Right.
I gotta jump for 1,000 times until my athletics gets to live.
There you go. Yeah.
I have to down 300 bottles of skooma and run across Tamriel in 5 seconds.
Excellent.
That's a
Sonic-
scuba challenge.
Skooma challenge. Cue the Sonic the Hedgehog music, please.
So anyway, that's the game that I'm playing now is Atelier Ferris, and I have a really nice spreadsheet. Yep.
Yeah, Atelier Ferris seems like the whole series has this kind of happy atmosphere, relaxing gameplay, sort of in-depth alchemy, crafting system, and this exploration and sense of journey. And and probably not super like emphasis on antagonist, I'd say, but just like more about just exploring the world and
It's all about
crafting.
exploration and the people you meet and the sights that you see.
Yeah, I do know from watching Teal play Atelier Sophie, the final boss is a side comment that you go on after having a conversation, and then boom, you're in the final dungeon fighting the final boss of the story. I'm like, well, that seems like an aside.
The jabs will keep coming thick and fast of this game. Apparently not perfect to some, but to some it's just the right thing that you need.
Yeah.
Like I said, I admire the world continuity sincerely, and I wish more games would do that.
That's a great sounding game. Touch, you're going to bring a game, but a different kind of game for us today. What are you bringing today?
So I'm glad that Steel went before me, so I can get a spiel out before I actually talk about the game. So one of the things I like to do with designing games with designing games in RPG Maker is that you can pull from so many different types of other types of games. It doesn't have to be video games. And I'm a big fan of both board games and tabletop RPGs. And I've been working with a tabletop RPG. It's a Japanese tabletop RPG called, hopefully I pronounced this correctly, it's called Kamigakuri God Hunters. And the thing I wanted to focus on is really the mechanics, but I'll quickly go over the lore of the game because it's also kind of cool too. So the lore of the game is basically modern day. There are gods, which are actually just things that have gained something called a shard, which is some kind of ancient artifact thing that we don't know exactly what it is. But humans can get a shard and become a god hunter, a Kamigakari, or they can be a shard can become sentient on its own and become what's called Arimatama, which is kind of an evil god type thing. And humans are hunting them down to try to keep the world from ending. And then there's the Mononoke, which are when a animal or an item can get a shard and become to life, the Japanese obsession with having monsters that are based on household objects, like, oh look, that monster's an umbrella, so that kind of stuff. But
This is true.
so this game is also very anime, by the way. One of the characters I made just as an example when I was working out, because I'm running the game, and I was just like, what's the most ridiculous thing I can do? And I'm like, okay, do you want to play a high school student descended from a devil who rides a motorcycle as a weapon while wielding a pistol and fire magic? And yes, you can do that. That's perfectly fine. So it's got really the wildness of what you can make is neat. But so one of the things I was thinking of and got me thinking about RPG design is alternative costs for things. Like every single game is just okay, we got MP, and now that it got introduced in RPG Maker in VX Ace, I think added TP, or maybe VX did. I can't remember when TP got added in, but it was just okay, now we got another game that has MP and TP. But the way Kamigakuri works is, so in your normal rolls, when you roll for a skill or whatever, you roll 2 6-sided dice, and then you add your skill to it. But the thing is at the beginning of the game, you take 4 dice, and you roll them, and you leave them in front of you on those sides. And at any time when you roll 2d6, you can switch one of those dice for one of the dice in your row. It's called your spirit dice. So you have some effect on changing it. Like maybe you have a 6 down in your row, and you're like, oh, well, I really need to succeed in this. I'm going to flip this 6 in. But there's another thing you can do with it, and that's that all of your talents, like your special abilities and your spells, have costs. So you may have a spell that says that you need to pay an odd, or that you need to pay an even, or steps, which means 2 next to each other. And so you pay out of your spirit dice that thing. So it's oh, I need a 5, so I'll play a 5 to pay this, to use this talent, or I need a steps, so I have a 3 and a 4. Or I need pairs, so I'll do this. So the thing is not only are you trying to like make sure your rolls succeed, but you're also trying to flip dice down into your spirit dice that match talents you have to use your powers. And at the same time, after you use your powers on the end of your turn, you re-roll those dice and just put them back. So you should constantly have access to powers, and your cost is more about trying to manipulate a number into your row to use it. And this concept is so different from anything else I'd seen in any game I'd played. And then it was more like a puzzle aspect. Kind of like, I guess technically the closest I can think of is something like Puzzle Quest, where you were trying to puzzle out to get the type of resource you needed to power up your spells and stuff. And I really think people need to focus on that in games. Is HP, MP, TP, all that stuff is so rote now. It's so common. And as I said, even though you can do the same things over and over again, and if you are polished enough, it still be good. Dragon Quest, still amazing, even though there's like very little original in those games. But I'd love to see more of just original concepts in costs of your skills, especially if it lets you use your skills more often, because nothing can be more boring as when you have nothing to do but attack.
I know of a couple of game developers who do some fun things with action economy and stuff with their games. Seems like a really cool concept to kind of a jumpstart, I guess, in that direction. One of them is Red Nova, or Nova, who was actually one of the co-developers on Remnants of Isolation, which is a game released by RPG Maker. Did you hear, I think?
Yes, we did.
Yeah, and but he's been creating stuff like Prayer of the Faithless and Soul Sunder, and has a lot of really interesting systems. And he's always going on in his blogs about, I need to balance this stat, I need to do this kind of thing, and it seems like he's reworking the traditional RPG genre to RPG formula to something completely weird and different, and you just kind of go in and go, what is going on here? But I think
but also where you said stuff like talking about action economy, which is something, it's weird, I do not hear this talked about in video game design, in RPG video game design that much, but you hear action economy talked about a lot in tabletop RPGs. And that was another thing where I thought Kamigakuri did something very interesting, and that is that you, at the beginning of every turn, you get some their actions are called timings. I'm not sure why it's called that instead of just actions, but at the start of the turn, everyone gets a start timing. So everyone, even before you start taking your turn, you have a bunch of different things you can do that affect the turn, like maybe affects your initiative for that turn. And then also on your turn, you have an action timing and also a prep timing, which is kind of like D&D with move actions and attack actions. And the insert of another action that you can't use to attack is something I've always wanted to see in video game RPGs, because so often the most efficient way to fight any fight in a video game is just attack every single time, or some kind of thing that does actual damage. If you had another action always that just did something else but couldn't be used to do damage, you would see a lot more variety, like a buff there or something like that. And it's stuff like that where I just feel like you take these ideas from some other type of game, play every type of game you can, because there's so many ideas hiding in board games and tabletop RPGs that video games could really steal and use, because that's really a lot of great games are made from stealing from a lot of other games and then being respectful to them about your stealing.
Usually crediting that you stole from them. No.
Well, you know what they say, there's no such thing as a truly original idea. So, I mean, getting inspired by what someone else has done successfully, then turning it into your own that's just the creative process. If I see a game that, or read a book or play a tabletop game, and there's a concept in there that really strikes home to me as being, hey, I could use something like this, and then I turn it into my own. A great example is, 'cause it's funny that Touch brings up tabletop games, because Teal and I are actually putting a tabletop system together in this world. We took an idea of the Arisen from Dragon's Dogma and then made it our own into this other concept. Nothing like the Arisen, but that whole concept of rising from death and becoming stronger. So you can take a concept that, like Touch says, you take it from something else, then make it your own. And
Well,
I mean, that's
so talking about that is like the whole idea of like cross pollination, where you have like one type of game. There's also a tabletop RPG called Fight. It's in its second edition now, and it's based on video game fighting games. And the mechanics actually take, like, you can tell where they're taught, like, the idea of, like, how frame data works in fighting games, video games, are just pulled right into this tabletop RPG. Like, how long does it take after your attack before you reset and stuff like that. And it's so interesting to me to see games from one medium of games affecting the others and taking ideas from it. And I want to see more of that everywhere.
100%. You mentioned action economy. And it's interesting, you know, from a tabletop perspective, action economy means, you know, the efficient use of actions during your turn, you know, multiple actions like a move action or an attack action, and it's, you know, being the most efficient. When you translate that over into a lot of video games, and Teal and I see this on a lot of the different streamers that we watch, like Jack of All Ops, Hawk Zombie, etc., even Driftwood Gaming. They'll talk about action economy in their sense. It's my one character's action for this round. So the whole concept of action economy changes depending on the medium, and then you have to adjust your mental paradigm as a developer. You know, the concept is the same, but the execution's a little different when you have, you know, your party of 4, your 3 monsters, and you only get 4 actions, which each of those characters in that round, as opposed to a D&D character who may get, you know, 3 or 4 actions in their one round of D&D battle.
Well, and also usually when you're talking about action economy, you're talking about the fact that if you can just get more actions, you'll generally do better. And that's why in like 3.5 D&D, the druid was so good, was because you could summon a bear, and then you could summon a bunch of bears, have an animal companion that was a bear, and then turn yourself into a bear, which doesn't have anything to do with action economy, but I just like bears. But you ended up with an action for every single one of these bears and then yourself, and you had so many more actions and so many more opportunities to do things that you could just kind of run over enemies. And so it does have some like application in, say, games that don't go pure turn-based in RPGs. But I just want people to think about, it's like opportunity cost. The idea of opportunity cost is this action. It's not just how good is the action I'm taking. It's how good is this action compared to all the other things I could do with this action.
Yeah.
And the video game that we've played recently, in fact, we did a critical play series of it this year that handles that beautifully, is Final Fantasy VII Remake. It's those ATB meters, right?
It's a very well designed game.
It really is. And when you get into the nitty gritty of the battle, instead of having, you know, turn-based ATB, the ATB depends on what actions you can use depending on who you're controlling. So Cloud and Tifa, the melee fighters, even their actions are very different than than each other's. And then you get into Barrett and Aerith, and they're long-range fighters, and they're very different. So you have 4 different characters, and your action economy for each one, the actions you can choose on, is just limitless.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
And so as you go into each fight in the game, you can just mash that attack button. But if you think strategically as to how each character can bring something different to each fight, you can really just pull off some amazing stuff.
You sure can, yeah.
Yeah, plus the story's amazing.
Kamiga Kari, the dark gods are encroaching, go kill them, and there's a lot to learn. Those are the games we've been playing lately. Now we're going to move on to topics we must discuss, simply because this is a podcast, and it's serious. Here's the part of the podcast where we ask the serious questions. Yeah, our first question is about origins. The question is, how did you discover, say, RPG Maker and game development? What's your general story around that?
My history of game development goes all the way back to the Commodore 64 during the 80s. My father worked for the U.S. space program and had a lot of access to computers very early on. And he brought home it was one of the original game systems after Coleco. It was called the Intellivision, and he brought the old Intellivision system home and had like blackjack and actually had a Dungeons and Dragons game on it. It was just a lot of fun. Tron Deadly Discs, and I would play that, and he would play it. In fact, we'd have family game night, so we'd have board games, and then we'd pull out the Intellivision and play, whatever. Well, my father saw that I was really getting into it, so he one day brought home a Commodore 64, which had 64K of RAM. Yeah, 64 kilobytes of
That's
RAM.
all you'll ever need.
That's all you'll ever need. And with it, he had a book on programming. And he said, son, take a look at this. If you like games, maybe you might want to create them. And ever since, I've just been picking up more and more. During my entire childhood, I would learn on the C64 and eventually the C128, just how programming worked. And then in high school, I continued that. One of the 3 clubs I was a part of was the computer club. And I would go to competitions, and I would always have something graphically oriented. So members in the club would also be creating things like, high content, formulas, doing algebra and trigonometry, because that's cool stuff, like figuring out like, complex algorithms. And I would be sitting here making, my version of Donkey Kong. And it just continued until I actually got into college for comp sci IT, so MIS actually. And I kept playing around with computers until I found Don Miguel's version of the RPG Maker 2000 engine.
Yeah.
And I fell in love with it. There was another engine called Verge at the time by a guy named Vesna. I was playing around with that one as well, but it didn't have a functional battle system. RPG Maker did. And I started noodling around with it. And this was about the time I started dating Teal, maybe about 2 or 3 years afterwards. And then 2003 came out a few years later, and I started getting into that. And it was just kind of a cascade. Like all the stuff from my childhood started coming out, and I just started creating more and more things in RPG Maker. Programming, I started picking up C, specifically DirectX, but C++. When we moved here to Houston after Hurricane Katrina, I got a job working for a studio down in Stafford, which is southwest of Houston, working on their serious game simulators. And I did stuff working in DirectX programming as well as the Unreal Engine 2.5. Then I did contract work for another studio down here in Stafford. That started to hold dry up because everyone was moving to Austin. But at that point, I was also getting a degree in game development, and it just kind of cascaded. So it was just started with my dad giving me a book and a C64, and then literally tidal waved to the person I am today. So that's my origin.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, I remember playing Don's Adventures on the first in the RPG Maker 2000 or RPG Tsukuru.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's a very, very fun little adventure that came with the engine. And actually, I had the unique privilege of being able to interview Don for this podcast. So we'll go check out that mini-sode when that comes out.
Wow.
Yeah, it's crazy to think about. But yeah, it seems to track from very early on, from the Commodore 64 all the way to now. It's just been such a consistent journey, I suppose.
It has, and it has paralleled my writing journey and a few other my film journey as well. So it's like everything kind of started at childhood and has cascaded. And honestly, I am the man I am today because of my father. I talk about that a lot in our AMAs, our Ask Us Anythings. I am who I am because of my dad.
I discovered RPG Maker and video game development at the same time. This was back during post-Katrina.
Right.
And I was unemployed at the time. So I really had nothing much to do. Well, Steele was working on a game.
Right.
He was just working on a personal project, stretching his game skills, his game making skills, and he had like this deadline, and he was doing this thing all by himself, making a RPG game. So I said, okay, I'll help you. I'll help you with it. Take some of the stress off. So I learned uh, I learned RPG Maker. Which one was it? It was
2003.
It was 2003. So I learned it. I picked it up and I helped him.
Yeah.
And I fell in love with game dev. So it was all thanks to RPG Maker that I got into game development. And from there, I just started leapfrogging, learning everything I could and doing stuff. Level design, maps, spriting, assets, asset creation, asset modding, coding. Yeah.
Writing,
dialogue. Oh, I love dialogue. So everything is because of RPG Maker.
Yeah. And it was because of the hurricane. You know, we were both Katrina refugees at the time, and
I had no job.
No. And she, you know, it was really nice because Teal and I, we started dating years before the hurricane, and we've always kind of done stuff together, just not that aspect.
Right.
And, you know, we've always played video games together, tabletop RPGs, we even LARPed together, but game dev was my thing and it was just mine. And then suddenly
it was something that he did.
And then suddenly we start sharing it.
Yeah. Because I wanted to help you out. So I just jumped in and started doing it.
Yeah. So and we've been a couple in game dev ever since.
It's true.
Yeah, it's interesting to hear. There's not complete parallels, but I did an episode with Driftwood Gaming earlier. They've got a completely different story, but it's interesting to see that two of the most prominent YouTube channels based on RPG Maker are centered around couples. So it's very interesting to hear their stories.
Thank you. That's very kind of you to say that.
So my story parallels Steel's a little bit, except for the weird thing about it is I never intended to work in the game development or anything industry. Never intended to. It was always a hobby, and I always treated it like a hobby until I landed where I am. So when I was a kid, I first got started with writing in like QBasic. In fact, I probably coded better then than I do now because I used it more. And then I was a young teen, and I found the fan translation of the SNES RPG Sukuru, which I have later bought a box, the game for it, the cartridge, and I have it downstairs on a shelf showing it off. But wow. And I found it, and I really enjoyed it. And then I found 95, and then 2000 came out, and then 2003, and it was always just this kind of thing I did on the side on top of like, I don't remember. I think I wanted to be a teacher. I still kind of do now, but you know, that's kind of passed me by at this point. But, and I never thought about doing it as a job. It was just another thing that I enjoyed doing, just like writing. I love doing design of any type of game. I do like some stuff with board game and RPG stuff on the side, just on my own time. And when I joined a forum, it was rpgvx.net forever ago.
Oh, yeah.
10 years ago, 11 years ago. And somehow I got made a mod, and they thought I was responsible, so I got made the head admin eventually.
Little did they know.
And, well, this is actually all related because at the time, Digica had just picked up the English language publishing for RPG Maker. And the person who was in charge of the marketing for it knew nothing about RPG Maker. But he messaged me on the forums because I was the head admin. He goes, "Do you know anyone who could write part-time for our blog? Maybe do some social media stuff." And I'm like, "Sure, I could do it. I'm not working right now because this was during one of the recessions, and I was working in construction at the time, and no one was doing construction. Like you would get repair work that was necessary, and that was it. No one else was doing anything. Yeah. So I had hardly any work to do, and I was just like, well, yeah, I can do that. So I started working with it, and it just kind of grew and grew until I'm doing what I'm doing now. And making RPGs is still like that side hobby for me. I don't even actually care if I finish games, because it's more about the journey for me than making a finished game, which makes me different from a lot of people in the community, and why I care more about facilitating to the community ideas about how to make games than I do about working on stuff myself, because what I'm doing doesn't matter to me. If I never finish, it doesn't matter. But I know a lot of people care if they finish, and they care about the design of their games, and they should. And I want to make sure that they have everything they need to do that.
Right. Yeah, it's very much a sort of I want to support everyone in their journey to be who they want to be, kind of thing, and enable people to reach for higher things, I suppose.
Yeah, pretty much.
When it comes to inspiration, say this is for all three of you. When it comes to games, other media, things that inspire you, what might that be? What's your palette, I suppose?
So I already talked about the fact that I draw inspiration from board games and tabletop RPGs, but really, almost any type, especially when you start talking about your story, any type of storytelling medium. Which I love storytelling. I love books. I love comics. I love TV series. This is like the golden age of TV, right? Like, so many good TV series right now. I don't even actually watch movies anymore because of how good TV is now. And just everywhere. Just take from anything you can ever to your life. Walk outside. Well, not walk outside right now, please. Stay home. But maybe when this airs, things will be better.
And if not, wear
in
your
New
mask.
Zealand, I've heard it's actually very nice that y'all have things under control.
Well.
Yeah, we ain't.
No.
Oh.
But, just your normal life. You take from your experience in your life, take from experience from literally anything, and turn it into the game you want to see. So that's pretty much my thought on it.
Yeah, I've actually heard that from a lot of developers. Some developers will take inspiration from certain media, but then some will just say life, things that they've experienced. They don't really, I mean, TV as well, that you notice that, but also some people, they're just like, I go out and I do things and I gain inspiration from real life, and then I just turn it into, games.
Well, let's take like
that experience.
With real life, talking about people are asking how do you write good dialogue, and I'm like, okay, so what you do is you just listen to people talking. Go to a cafe and listen to two people talk.
100%.
And you will start understanding how people talk to each other. And you still have to adjust a little bit, because a lot of people, and I do this too, I just said it, we put a lot of filler words into what we say, and you don't really want to do that in your own writing unless you're writing a character who is a little less eloquent. But, like I'm not, but in general, if you listen to people talk, you can kind of pick that natural feel and cadence of how people speak, and it helps your dialogue writing a lot. They stop sounding like fake people and start sounding like real people.
Yeah, I always found it funny. I read like a book about writing as a kid, and they they made that same piece of advice: go into a park and listen around you and write what's around you, and then if someone talks nearby, write down what they're saying. It's like I just kind of always found it a little bit funny, because it's almost like you're some kind of spy into their. I didn't want to feel too much like I was prying too much into their conversation. You start writing down something that might incriminate them, or we hid the bodies in the. Yeah, I've always found that piece of advice good, useful, but I always chuckled to myself a little bit about that. For Studio Blue, but the both of you, what kind of favorite kinds of games and other media inspires you?
Do you want to go first, honey? Or you want me to go?
Yeah, you go ahead.
So, I mean, my favorite kind of game is anything that's story driven. While I have a penchant towards JRPGs, any game that's story and character driven is going to excite me and draw me in. Not so much into open world exploration, the Elder Scrolls aside, as I am into games that have a tightly packed, far-reaching, not necessarily epic story. I also like it when games thematically match. Like Eternal Sonata is one of my favorite games from the PS3 era, because it's about the composer Chopin, and the music in the game is all based off of Chopin's music. So that's the kind of things that I look for in games. But as far as inspiration to create, I actually have to agree completely with what Touch said. In my earlier parts of my writing career, I tried to pull from whatever movie or I liked at the time, or book, or whatever Vampire the Masquerade story we were doing in New Orleans at the time. And I found that my writing was very trite. And it wasn't until I actually met Neil Gaiman and Stephen Bruce at a
Hmm.
convention they were in, and actually talked to them, not just in the panel, but face to face afterwards. And both of them said, take a notebook, go to a cafe, go to a park, just go somewhere you don't usually go and just watch and listen, not just to people, but to the way the environment is. When do birds tweet? When do squirrels come down from trees? How often does cars pass by on this road as opposed to that road? When does the train come through? What does a bridge sound like if there's wind? What does a house sound like when it settles? Go out and live, because if you're
Yeah.
sitting at home, you're not learning how the world works. And if you're not learning how the world works, how can you translate that to the page or a game in this instance? So literally everything Touch said, and that inspires me, is living.
But talking about that whole thing about and seeing how real life is. So one of the things I always notice, and this is a very big thing with art as well, is where people are mimicking writing or art that they like, and by doing that, their default style is being drawn from it. And whereas if you can make things that are unrealistic on purpose, a stylistic choice, but if you start from real, you're building your own style and not just mimicking the style of someone else. It's like with art, with people who just draw anime style because it's anime style, and they don't understand that having a basis in how to draw real life stuff lets you have your own deviations as opposed to someone else's deviations.
100% there. Once you take your own experience, regardless of whether your style is anime or something, hybrid or whatever, it doesn't matter what the style is. One of my favorite artists in the community is Archea, because Archea pulls from real life and then gives it that anime style. But you can tell when Archea makes a piece of art that it's their art. And I love that. And I agree completely with this. If you're building your entire foundation of your art, whether it be visual arts, music, writing, game, it does not matter. And you're pulling from your real life and the real life around you. And then you add the stylistic choices, and you have, like, arching blocks of earth, these huge, massive archways with civilizations on top, or floating islands with each one holds its own kingdom. But you're coming from your knowledge of how your world is, then that world that you build is going to be real and yours, not a mimic of someone else's.
Hmm. Yeah, I hearken from RPGmaker.net, and actually, this podcast was inspired by a podcast that Liberty and Archaea did, Liberty of RPGmaker.net, and yeah, so working from that, they're just so influential, but also, yeah, the way that you kind of, and the fact that you're talking about Neil Gaiman and just how you casually got advice from him as well, it's pretty incredible. Teal, how about yourself? Inspirations?
Let me just start off by saying one of my favorite kinds of games has changed over the years. What I liked 15 years ago is not necessarily where I'm at today. So for me, my journey has been what interests me at the time. What am I exploring? What am I trying to dive more into? And currently, it's open world, because I love discovering new places and new things. And, especially now since I can't travel, I really like doing deep dives into interesting environments. It doesn't matter to me if it's a fantasy setting or a sci-fi setting, a utopian, dystopian, steampunk. Don't care. What I want is a big, interesting place to explore. I want to poke into nooks and crannies. I want to see what I can get. I love looting. I want people to talk to. I want to hear their stories and what they have to say. And um, talking to the policeman on the corner in London. What's going on? What are they concerned about? Do we have the Ripper or not? That sort of thing. So I'm into really explorations and discovery right now. And I guess for me, it's kind of a theme throughout my life. I love traveling. I love exploring. When I was younger, I was kind of like a gypsy. I would travel all over the place. And on a whim, I would just get in my car and drive somewhere. 13 hours, 14 hours. Didn't care. I wanted to see a place, so I went and did it.
Oftentimes dragging a erstwhile steel with her.
See, I used to think I didn't like to travel. I've always liked diversity, like food. I love trying any type of new food. Used to think I didn't like travel until I started doing some conventions for Digica, and they flew me to Japan a couple of times, and I'm like, oh, I don't like paying for travel. That's what it is.
Yeah.
I want to see all these places. I don't want to pay for it.
Honestly, I was not much of a traveler prior to dating Teal, and she would just come to my apartment and say, okay, we're going. And I'd be like, where are we going? We're going to go to Jackson. We're going to go to Orlando. And I'm like, okay, when are we doing this? She's like, you should be packing your bag now. But it was good because pulling me out the comfort zone.
Yeah.
Well, it's true. And my wife really enjoys travel as well. So it's that thing of like, I'm not big on going out, but like I get dragged out occasionally to go do things.
And that's good.
Would love to travel now. Right now, I just want to travel so bad. I want to see something other than my house.
Dude,
so bad.
You were living the dream touch. You were living the dream touch. I would like love to just go to Japan on a trip. Just hey, we're gonna fly you to Japan for a week, Teal. Steel.
Yeah.
I do it. Do it.
It was probably the best perk my job has ever had. I will say that.
Awesome.
And Tokyo is a wonderful city if you ever get to go.
Oh, I do want to go there.
Oh, wow.
So much so.
Yeah.
Oh, you got flown out there?
Oh yeah, I've been out there a couple of times and worked for a week from the office.
Oh,
that's so.
It's
cool.
a very interesting experience because I'm used to working from home all the time, and even before then, I was self-employed as a contractor. So the idea of working in an office is very weird to me. But I enjoyed it both times. The food was amazing and incredibly inexpensive to eat in Tokyo.
Food.
Very good food.
I've heard that. Yeah.
Just don't
That's
eat
so
pizza.
cool.
It's like $40 for a medium pizza in Tokyo.
Oh, God.
I don't know why pizza is so expensive. Just get sushi. You can go to a revolving sushi place, pay $7, and have the best sushi you've ever had in your life.
And there's those corner stores and stuff that sell ready meals and stuff. Apparently they're amazing.
Oh yeah,
as well.
I kept getting sandwiches from the one near where I was staying. I actually had to walk through a grocery store, or I didn't have to, but it was the fastest way to get to the train station from where I was staying. So in the morning, I would just walk through that grocery store, grab a sandwich and a drink, and then just stand and eat them right outside, and then go to the train.
They were like good quality apparently too. These like little things and stuff.
All the prepackaged food there is so good and so much better, and also healthier than what we eat in the U.S.
I imagine so.
Well, it's so easy to get cheap, healthy food at a convenient location and stuff, and it's very hard to do that in the U.S.
It's so weird because when you say that, I think of like the egg salad sandwich you'd get at a convenience store or a gas station here in the U.S., which I would not touch.
Yeah.
No.
That.
Oh, I literally was getting egg salad, but it was good.
Yeah. That's,
If I went
Unheard
to
of.
Tokyo, I would be eating sushi and ramen and udon all the time. Just
Rice
infuse
bowls
it.
and sushi I got almost every day.
yeah.
That was just breakfast in the morning.
Jelly, jelly, jelly. That's awesome, dude. That's awesome.
Transitioning, I suppose, from food in Japan to our next section, which is the question box. Welcome to the question box, the segment where RPG Maker community users like yourself, listeners, asked questions related to game development, design, and other stuff that we probably don't know the answers to, but we'll try. Our first question comes from Starmage from the RPG Maker Cold Discord and other places. Hi, Starmage. question for Steel and Teal. First of all, what art style are you guys going for on the project you guys are working on? I heard it's going to be 3D, and I'm interested how it's going to look artistically speaking.
All right. Well, thanks for asking that question, Star Mage. So you're talking about Rosenhearts in the Unreal Engine, and what we kind of have settled on for a visual look is very similar to. It's kind of interesting that we had already talked about the series, Atelier Riza for
Right.
the artistic style. So it's an anime style with a bit of a hybrid cross away from like the full-fledged, huge, massive eyes, but a little bit more compact and slightly realistic look.
Yes.
Since it is a steampunk game, Victorian steampunk
Victorian
game,
steampunk.
we're going to be using a lot of those, more, I almost want to say Miyazaki, Howl's Moving Castle style with the gears and stuff, the complexity of the machinery. So that's kind of the artistic style we're going in. And a slight cell shade, not a pure cell shade, but a slight shell shading so it has sort of that toonish look without going all the way.
Right. We don't want it to look full cartoony or full on anime.
Right.
That's not what we're going for.
But not full realistic like some Unreal Engine games are, like Tomb Raider or FF7 Remake.
Right.
Yeah.
We're not going for the photorealism either.
No.
Mm-hmm.
So it is a hybrid.
It's a hybrid.
It sounds nice and cute. And, well, but maybe not. I don't know. We'll have to see screenshots and then might, change my expectations. But yeah, I think we'll talk a little bit about that later in the deep dive section. As for Touchfuzzy, as community manager for digital games at RPG Maker Web, how big is the community now compared to when it started?
Okay, so I'll of course just talk about feel because I would have to pull up actual numbers to get a complete thought on it. But my main thing is that I don't obviously more people are using RPG Maker than ever. I think.
Yeah.
Our sales point that out. But I think that the actual community hasn't so much grown as it has condensed. Back when I first got into RPG Maker community stuff 10, 11 years ago, there were just so many different forums, and there were just all the community was just splintered among all these different locations. And now it feels like it's much more focused. You have RPG Maker Web, and then you have RPGmaker.net. And other than those, there's not a lot of big locations for the community. You have the personal discords for Studio Blues discords or Driftwood's discords and stuff like that. But as far as RPG Maker community as a whole, it's really just been more condensed rather than really growing. And that's fine. That means it's easier to find everybody. It's easier to talk to everybody.
I think that might be that classic case of, I don't know if you know that analogy of the frog in the pan or whatever, when, you put if you put a frog on a slowly increasing heat, it won't realize that it's being fried. I know it's a little bit of violent imagery, but yeah, it's...
Yeah, I've heard that. It is the whole thing of the slow realization also that I'm a relatively important part of the community, because I don't think of myself that way often, right? I just think I'm just another person here. And then I slowly realizing that I have a lot of influence. If I say something, people will believe it. Or people will just argue with me, one or the other.
Yeah.
And also okay, so, and I talk about this one time with requesting resources or something like that. If I do it, somebody's going to pick it up, but it's just because of who I am. And that's kind of unfair in some ways, but I guess I've gotten that that respect over the years for doing what I'm doing, but...
Human from the RPG Maker Cold Discord asks, and it's a couple of questions for Touch, saying, what would you like to see... I'll combine them. What would you like to see in the next RPG Maker engine after MZ? And what are the best and fairest criticisms of RPG Maker engines in general, and MZ in particular? Studio Blue can feel free to weigh in as they'd like. Human says, I'd ask more Studio Blue questions, but I already hang out with them a lot, so apparently...
We love you, Human.
They've asked everything they need to know.
So, first thing I would like to see is variable tile size.
Yeah.
I would like to see in the engine the ability to use 32 by 32 tiles or 48 by 48. or 24 by 24 if you wanted to, or 16 by 16. Like the ability to like alter that would be really cool and something I'd like to see. I'd also like to see self variables, not just self switches. I'd also like to see, and this is just a thing because I'm like really, really organized. I would like to see map level switches and variables as well.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
So then you can like really break down and keep your game more organized and not need as many global variables used, that you really only use it in one map. Maybe it's for like a puzzle in that map and you're like, well, I have to, now it's in my big list. And if they were map level, you could it would be a shorter list of just stuff on that map. And it's like organizational things are like a big thing to me. Maybe like the ability to reorganize your database order would be a neat thing too. Another organizational touch that makes development easier. For the developer. So that's like the things I would say. And when you talk about like so the best and fairest criticisms of RPG Maker in general is when people say things like they're really only good if you're planning on making an RPG, and I'm like, yeah, it really is. You can make other games in it. You can make a visual novel in it, but it's not going to be as good as if you had used something like we publish Visual Novel Maker, or even RenP or something like that. Some other engine that's designed specifically for it. RPG Maker is designed to make RPGs.
They're probably not good for
and that's a
3D MMOs yet. Not yet.
I wrote an article a long time ago when someone asks, can I make an MMO with this? And I'm like, one, if you have to ask, you don't have the coding skill to do it, and two, you don't want to make an MMO. No one wants to make, like, a single developer, even like a small team, making an MMO is the most mind-boggling concept to be. It's so much work. You'll never get it done. But anyway, it's like the thing is like they're like, oh, it's limited, and I'm like, yeah, it is limited to making making RPGs really well, like
purposely.
You can do other things, but I'm like, yeah, but it is a specialized tool, and that's what it's meant to be, and it is a fair criticism. I do think that people talk about sometimes also some things from plugins just need to be imported into like a base functionality of the engine. And I think that's also true with some things. I'm not going to talk specifics about that, but I think sometimes people have very specific things they want. And I'm like, that's the kind of stuff that should be a plugin, right? If it's going to be used in 1 out of 1,000 games, it doesn't need to be a base part of the system. But there are things that I'm like, that could be added in. That's mostly where I'm at with that.
Basically, like everything Yanfly has done. Like
the Vistastella engine, I could not imagine making a game without the core of that engine. It's so good for MZ, and I suggest everyone to check out the core. The core is free. They have paid stuff that you can also get, and I will straight up say I like it on a personal level. This isn't me as a Digica representative hyping their stuff. It's me as a human being who uses RPG Maker. I really like their stuff. I really like the people behind it as human beings. Archaea and Yanfly and Olivia and all of them are wonderful people on top of making wonderful products that I think people should look at.
I have to agree with that. Just to toss that in before we go any further, all the Vistastella people, all of their stuff is amazing, and really they deserve all the praise plus. And then the people themselves, like Touch said, Yanfly, Archaea, Olivia, all of them are truly the bedrocks of this community. And it's because of them and their selflessness that the engine is taking the leaps it's taking. And I'm not taking away from anything the Degica team is doing. I'm not taking away from Touch and the forum community. They're all awesome people. But when you look at the work they have put into this, it's mind-boggling that where the engine is now as opposed to where it would be if they had not.
I can't imagine what VXS and so on would have been like without Yanfly's plugins, on scripts and stuff on that, because it was almost the case, like 9 out of 10, games that took themselves seriously, half their salt, would have Yanfly's core ace sort of in there. And I haven't delved too much into MZ lately, but I think that must be the same with Versus Stellar stuff.
And there's a ton of people.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, there's a lot of really, really good plugin creators out there. What was the guy doing the map one? Huddle.
Victor? No, yeah, him.
Yeah.
Huddle. His map system is so cool. You like make your maps inside the engine, and it has a lot of like functionality that you can like. Oh, it's so good. And he's working on a pixel movement script or plugin, and pixel movement has not been done well in RPG Maker.
Yeah.
No.
There's always been like weird flaws with it, and the one that Huddle's making actually looks like it's efficient and works correctly. And I'm so blown away by stuff like that.
Yeah.
I actually sent a video of Huddle's his Cyclone the map maker. I sent a video to the people. It was Katakawa at the time. Technically the developers are split off to a separate company that I can't remember the name of right now, that are a subsection of Katakawa, but I sent it to the developers. And they were just impressed by it. So
what I would love to see, and I've been talking about this forever, is I would like to see some of the really good functions that were in RPG Maker 2003 brought back. Like, for example, the ability to call from one event on a map, another page of another event.
Right.
It's kind of like that whole private variable versus public variable in any other engine. I want to see private calls, like what Touch is saying, those map variables. Well, I want to see map calls. So if I'm on a map, I want to be able to call another event on that map, or have something globally be able to hit any other event out there. The lack of a private function versus a public function that you can use in a programming language in RPG Maker goes to the detriment of the engine. And to me, I think that's also one of the strongest criticisms, is that RPG Maker, while it is so simple anyone can use it, sometimes oversimplifies things that I feel it could do with just renaming it as an event and creating something a little bit more restrictive, but still do what programmers do. It's a deceptively powerful engine, but I think it hobbles itself at times.
Yes, that's very important. It's very important, and something we'd love to see in the engine. Dungeon Dev Dude from RPG Maker Cola Discord, hi Dungeon Dev Dude, asks, what's the one thing you see in amateur RPG Maker games that you wish you didn't see anymore? And I think I know Studio Blue probably has a ton of things. They have a whole channel dedicated, a whole series dedicated to this question. But if you had, if you had one thing,
I wonder if we can agree on the one thing.
Probably not. Go ahead and say your one thing first, honey.
Well, one thing.
Yeah.
Poor use of your assets.
Yeah.
And yeah, poor use of your assets.
Yes.
That's, I don't know if I really I don't know if I can really explain more than that.
Enough said, I think it's.
I think that's about right. It's, you have, I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, so correct me if I'm wrong. It's using what you have inefficiently and almost like, tree in a line.
Yeah.
Is that what you mean?
That's what I mean.
Okay.
Just using your assets incorrectly. I don't know.
Having a hard time there, hon?
I'm having a hard time articulating right now. I'm sorry.
It's fine.
The one thing I would like to see stopped being done in RPG Maker games is, we talked about it earlier, stop trying to make the epic fantasy adventure that is a reflush of the hero's quest that everyone's done. Use your first couple of RPG Maker games as a self-contained short story in which you work more on your game development than whatever great fantasy you have in your head. Just hone your craft, please. Hone your craft. We're always screaming that in our videos and our live streams. Hone your craft. Trust me, the world will be ready for your epic adventure once you know how to tell it properly.
Yeah. I'll hop into for my answer to this question. I think test your games. Test your games. Make sure make sure the bugs are out. Make sure everything works. And balancing as well. I'm cheating. No, test your game. That's my
okay. So I'm gonna answer this question, but it's not really the games. It's about the devs. The thing I want to see, I want to stop seeing amateur devs do. Stop saying, I don't want to share information about my project because someone's going to steal it. No one is going to steal your game. No one wants it.
Thank you.
And if they did and they took it, it still would not be what you create.
Yeah.
Don't go on the forums and make a recruitment thread and tell everyone nothing about your game because you're too afraid that someone's going to steal your idea. Because your idea is just that, it is an idea. Until you make it, it's meaningless. Ideas are everywhere. Everyone has ideas. Share your ideas. You can learn from other people. Your ideas can evolve as they bounce off other people. No one is going to steal your ideas. Please stop. Stop it.
Thank you. That is so annoying. It's like, when I just stop. No one's going to steal your book idea. No one's going to steal your game idea, your movie idea. No one's going to do it.
It's all about execution.
Yeah, and then, like I said, it won't be executed like you would execute it. So even if they stole your idea, it wouldn't be the same.
Yeah.
I'd like to re-answer the question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So I wish that I would see developers better utilize their assets. I'd like to see more variety in the tile sets that they choose, and to use each of your assets more strategically. I've seen so many amateur games where they pick one tree and that tree is splashed everywhere. Just that one tree. Or they create a tavern and you have one table and 3 chairs, and there's a broken bottle of wine on the table, and that's it. Just, yeah. I'd like to see amateur developers really do their research into what assets are going to need for this game, and get what you need, even if you have to shell out $2 for it, whatever. It's worth it. It is worth it to have a really good presentation.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Thank you, Dungeon Dev Dude. Our next question comes from Zeriab from the RPG Maker Cola Discord, asking, what engine do you currently like working in the most?
Well, that's easy.
Yeah.
Unreal 4.
Yeah, Unreal Engine 4. We will always have a special place in our heart for RPG Maker,
because that's what I started in.
Yeah.
RPG Maker.
And we go out of our way to study up on different engines like Unity, Godot, even Lumberjack, if you want to talk about an engine that needs some help. But we fell deeply in love with the Unreal Engine 4, and it's our go-to engine of choice now.
Yes, yeah, it is, because it does everything that I want to have happen,
and gives us control over what we want to do in our game. And that's to us the most important thing.
Control.
Can we tell the game engine what we want it to do instead of the engine telling us what we can do?
Yeah.
Okay, so not just because I work for the company, but I do really just like MZ a lot. One, as I said at the very beginning of this whole podcast, this is all just a hobby for me. So what I want to make is what RPG Maker is good at making. I want to make a 2D RPG. So it always fits what I want to do. And the other thing is comparing MZ to like earlier ones. There's 2 things that make me want to use MZ more. One, return of map layers is like such a big deal, and it lets you create maps much, much easier. But the second is, and before we announced this, I hyped this up, like, this is the most important new feature. And that is how you do plugin command calls. It's so much simpler to call commands from plugins now, because you can just pick from your menus, and you like, oh, I need to fill in this, this, and this.
Yeah.
And it's so shortens. There's so much stuff like that just shortens how long it takes to do something that would be very complex to do in a more earlier engine. So yeah, MZ.
Yep. MZ's good. MZ.
I got to agree that under the hood, MZ is absolutely amazing.
I'm very, very happy that they reintroduced the map layers.
Mhm.
I felt that it was so restrictive in
Yeah,
the previous version. You only had maybe 3 layers you could really work with.
yeah, it's the MV is a great engine, but I mean MZ took it and it's like VX to VX Ace. It just took it and ran with it.
Yeah, it did. So I
Resor-
really do appreciate what MZ has done.
The resource management
Hmm.
is much better too.
Yep.
So, yep.
Go out and buy it if you can right now, listener. RPG Maker MZ in stores near you, which is Steam.
You can get it from the Decaca store and you can get it from Steam. Choices.
It is true.
Yes, lots of choices. You can get it from both. So yeah, and there was one more question for each party, Studio Blue and Touchfuzzy by Pixel Jester or Nirwanda, but I'm going to skip it. Sorry, because I am actually going to ask these very same questions in the deep dive.
Okay.
Yep. So that was your questions. Thank you, Nirwanda, for those 2 questions, which I'm going to steal for the deep dive, which is right now. Let's go. The deep dive. In this section, we dive deep into one of each of our guests' projects and figure out what went on during the process, inspirations, and much more. We have talked about them sort of previously, hinted on a certain game, hinted at a certain channel and a role that one of our guests might have, but yeah, we're going to actually kind of just do a little bit of a survey over each of them just to get a little bit of information. I like to do that because I am an information gatherer. Firstly, I'd probably like to talk to Teal about your game that you're creating. In the Unreal Engine, you said something about it was anime style, Victorian steampunk, and its name was Rosenhearts. Yeah, just tell us a bit about this. I know nothing. Next to that, I know nothing about the game, so you might have to just give us a little bit of a teaser of what this game is.
Right. The reason that you may not know anything about it is because we started to make the game in RPG Maker MV over a year ago, probably close to about 2. And about 6 to 9 months in development, we started to realize that the story we wanted to tell and the game we wanted to create wouldn't work in a 2D environment. And again, no lack of love for the RPG Maker engine. It's just we started to realize a 3D game is what we needed to do.
Yeah.
So we started to vet the different engines and we switched over to Unreal, which has presented a challenge because we've literally had to recreate all the assets. Everything has to be remade from scratch.
Right.
There's a demo of the game in MV out there somewhere, but it's not indicative of what the game will be like in 3D. What Rosenhearts it is a Victorian steampunk adventure centering around 2 15-year-old girls. So if you know anything about the Victorian era, they're undebuted, who were forced into this adventure that expands throughout Western Europe during the early 1870s. And it's got swords and sorcery, high magic, not high fantasy, but high magic,
Airships.
zeppelins,
Oh.
fairies, monsters, daring duo, villainous villains, because it's Victorian melodrama at its absolute best.
Yeah.
And it draws a lot of its inspiration from 2 things. One, from Artel Sorian's Castle Falkenstein, which was created by Mike Pondsmith, the creator of Cyberpunk. But it also draws from, the works of H.G. Wells, Jules Verne, which Teal and I are massive fans of those old things. So it's like you're going to have like your Around the World in 80 Days, the 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, Journey to the Center of the Earth, Voyage to the Moon, The Time Machine, just pieces like that old Victorian style literature there. Everything was larger than life.
Yeah.
Massive gears, moving boilers that just chugged large things across the land. We've gone ahead and we've envisioned each part of Europe as being its own microcosmic, what would this area be like if it had been allowed to, expand with this steam tech any way it wanted. Like London is multi-tiered.
Yes.
It is this, got this massive like plates, almost like Midgard, where the middle town is where your merchant classes and the Piccadilly circuses, and then you have a larger plate on top of it where the Buckingham Palace and Westminster Abbey are, where huge gondolas will bring people from Piccadilly up to Westminster, and then below it you have a low town where you would have like the dregs of society and the people best left forgotten, just things like that. And in Paris would be this sparkling visage of art and light. Vienna would be this place where there's just music everywhere. So we've kind of taken this concept and just brought it to this level of wonderment
Yeah.
in this world where these two girls and their friends, their party that they gather, are brought into this high adventure.
Yeah.
That's Rosenheart. So it's a very ambitious project. Right now, what we're trying to do is trying to get the logic behind the various systems working so that we can produce a proof of concept and there either develop a team, get funding, however we're going to go ahead and make the project happen.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of work because we're taking everything that we took from the original 2D game and we're disassembling it down to its base components and reassembling it literally from scratch. So that's the Rosenhearts.
And 3D.
In 3D.
In 3D.
Yeah.
In 3D.
Which is a whole new thing. It's literally another dimension, and it seems like the assets are going to, like, I don't know how you deal with assets when 3D, usually 3D games like Atelier require big teams, massive teams. So how is it, like low polygon kind of stuff, or what, are you going to use existing assets? How do we feel like it's going to happen in 3D?
Right. So again, the creation of the proof of concept is the most important thing because that proof of concept, that vertical slice, will show people what we're capable of. And at that point, then Teal and I, from a business perspective, can figure out how we're going to fund the project. Is it going to be self-funded, crowd-funded, and try to find an investor, et cetera, et cetera. Once we've done that. So as far as the assets go, it's a measure of finding the asset packs that we can use for the proof of concept that exist on the Unreal Marketplace, modifying what we need to in Blender, because you can do that once you buy an asset pack, and making it so that we can, use what's already there as a starting point, because you don't want to asset flip. You want to use those starting packs to create, to inspire, and then you add to it. And you modify it and then you make it your own. Again, you're taking something and you're making it your own. And that's how we're going to handle the assets. The only thing that we're going to be building from scratch are the actual character models.
Yes.
Right.
Because we have that particular Atelier look, and those have to be modeled and rigged and animated according to our vision, not according to whatever asset pack is out there.
What a game to bring for the games we've been playing, because it really gives some sort of context to what type of flavor this game might be. And as for gameplay, will it be standard sort of RPG fare, or will there be something else expected? Is that confidential?
It will be a turn-based. Okay, it'll be so exploration on the map will be like your normal JRPGs. The world will be selectable through a map list. So kind of like your Shadow Hearts games back from the OPS2 era. You'll have like a map of Europe come up, and it'll look like those old Jules Verne, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea maps. And you'll select the location you're going to go to. So you can go to like the Black Forest in northwestern Europe. You can go to the Swiss Alps. You can go to Munich. You can go to London. And then you'll go into the actual level there. The battle system itself is turn-based, highly customized. We call it the Fate system. And the battle system focuses on being as cinematic as possible as a turn-based battle engine can be, while allowing the player to strategically dismantle the enemy by finding out what it's weak to, exploiting those weaknesses, which open up holes to stronger exploitations, until you're literally battering the enemy into the ground and then using a super attack to finish it off. But you can also tank and crank it if you want to.
Right.
So the player is rewarded for strategy, but not punished for not strategy.
Ah, that sounds very exciting. Sounds like a game that people would be quite interested in.
We do not have a roadmap on it, just letting y'all know, because
Yeah.
right now we're concentrating on proof of concept, which is far more important to us than pumping out maps.
Right.
Yeah, I'll switch over to Touchfuzzy or Touch. I'm going to ask generally about the role that Touch has sort of been playing with regards to Digica and the RPG Maker community. Yeah, what have you been doing at the moment? What kinds of everyday activities would you be doing? What's it like working? And what's your kind of goals at the moment?
So one of the things that's like my job, and I've been doing this now for 8 years, is that it has evolved over time. I've done a lot of different things. I work on different things. I'll expand and contract what I've been doing. One of the things I've been working on recently is expanding what we're doing, because there was only so much I could do when it was just me. I don't know how to do certain things. I'm not an artist. My coding has atrophied to a stupid extent. I need to get back into trying to remember how to do all that stuff.
Yeah.
And so when it was back with me just writing all of the tutorials and making all the content, I couldn't do certain things. And also there was just so much to do that like there might be a tutorial for a month or so on the blog or something. So what I've been really focusing on is bringing in other people on a contract basis to do things that either I can't do or I don't have the time to do, like Steel and Teal, bringing in them to do our weekly critique stream, which I am greatly enjoying. I just get to sit and watch and moderate the chat and make sure nothing goes wrong. And 99 times out of 100, nothing does. So it's a really relaxing job for me, and I appreciate them doing it. But also, we brought in Avery and Hidden One, two people from our forums who Avery is a really good artist, and Hidden One has done a lot of different things, and she has pretty good art too. And they've been writing tutorials. They've been writing highlights on different community asset creators and what they've created. And so really my day has less been about creating content and about organizing everything that people are doing. I still do. I've also started doing my own stream where I'm just making a game, and it's very disorganized compared to how you really should make a game, to be perfectly honest. I've got like a lot of ideas, and I have like a overall arching document that tells me what I want to be doing. But because I want to teach certain things, sometimes I'll do things out of order. Because it's a stream and I'm just trying to teach people different ideas. But mostly like today, I woke up before we did our recordings and I did some editing on a tutorial. I checked in to see what packs are releasing this week, and I made sure that we had the descriptions for them done, stuff like that. But mostly it's that kind of stuff on the more business side. But then you go to like the community, and it's more about like events, so that people will have like really fun things to do, to be engaged in the community. So my whole thing is provide people with engagement, things that they want to do. They want to come back and look at tutorials. They want to come see Studio Blue play another game. They want to be on the forums and doing these challenges or doing a contest or anything like that. And all of that engagement and all that kind of thing of like being part of the community and also working on the games they want to work on. That's my job.
And you have such a good community in RPG Maker Web. You've got the the usuals, the Shaz's, M. Logans, and the B. Gillisps and stuff of the Ciliana. All these people have been constantly kind of creating this. And I suppose your job is also to just kind of make sure that everyone's okay and doing well and they have some kind of purpose.
I would just like to make a giant shout out here. So part of my job is being the head admin on the forums and making sure everything goes well. And the mod team is so good that I have almost no work to do on the forums, really. They're so skilled. They're so good. I come in, they'll ask me, they'll usually like occasionally I'll get a mess, on the staff boards, there'll be a post where someone's like, hey, what do you think we should do about this specific thing? But most of the time, they do such good work, and they're so amazing at it, and I can't thank them enough for making sure I don't I can work on other things that I can keep doing, like making another challenge to do, or working on my stream game, or any of these other things I can do that also enhances the community. I don't have to be constantly involved in the moderation, and they're just great. And if every single time, and it's always, it's realistic, people's lives change and they have to move on. Every single time a moderator leaves, it kind of makes me a little sad. Because they've made my life a lot better, actually.
Yeah.
And they're all good people too.
I do have to say, as an end user, Teal and I love the moderation team on that forum.
Yeah.
We've been a number of years. We've been a member of numbers of forums, and without a doubt, and I'm not just saying this out of a bias, RPG Maker Web's mod team is the best we've ever encountered, hands down.
See, that was my job in handpicking all of them. That was what I did so well.
Yeah.
That's not true. A lot of them actually, some of them I did handpick. Some of them were suggested to me from existing moderators. But the moderation team is amazing, and they keep a lot of work off my back, and I love everything they do.
Absolutely. Yeah. Shouts out to the community. The community does a whole lot, and and shouts out, and also thank you, Touch, for being such a good center point for all of our operations, I suppose, to sort of be our interface. It's actually been, I just want to say a public thank you from us as the RPG Maker community, just to say thanks for all the work that you've done for making this a hospitable and nice place to be.
Absolutely.
It's been a journey, and the forum is probably, to me, the center point of everything I have done. All the work that I've done, and I've done an incredible amount of work over the years. The forum has been that one thing that I think is the best lasting thing that I've done, where, there can occasionally be some problems, but as far as like the moderation, the feel of the community, it's mostly friendly. Friendly. And online, mostly friendly is very friendly.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Yeah. That's how you know you've made a community that's helpful, is when you see some semblance of humanity there.
Well, I mean, you're always going to have people who are going to cause ripples, and you're always going to have troublemakers. You're always going to have that. But I mean, the sheer number of helpful, kind thoughtfulness is overwhelming.
That's been, and I always know Arkea is doing like 27 to 700 things at once. So
it's not just like it's her work for Jessica, and then she's like, will she be working on another game? She was working on Amori. Was that the name of the game that just released recently? That she worked on, and since she's working on the Visicella stuff, I don't know when she sleeps or gets any rest. And I get concerned sometimes.
Teal and I are convinced that Arkea is a slime robot that just exists as a multitask.
Well, I have met her in person, and she is a human.
Yeah.
So
we love Arkea.
One time, I met Arkea once in person.
Yeah.
At a convention that I was working at, but I don't know, but we've worked together for 8 years, nearly 8-9 years maybe. Both working for Digica, and we've been like kind of the consistent parts of the English team. There's also another person that has been there since I've been there pretty much. His name is Nicola. He's French. He's works in the Japanese office, and he's also like been a kind of consistent point in the team. Really, really cool guy. Enjoy working with him. But so it's been like this thing of, I don't know, the forum's just wonderful, and I appreciate all the work that everyone else does. I do a lot of work, and I know I do a lot of work, but it wouldn't be possible to do what I do without everybody else.
And we'll just transition really quickly from that into Studio Blue's work. And I think Teal's going to give a little bit of context about that, but I'll just generally ask one of the questions that Nirwanda was going to ask about: how did you decide to like start a YouTube channel and start making video content about RPG Maker. Now you're working with RPG Maker Web to create stuff, those the criticism videos. How did it all start? Did you have some education in writing or presenting beforehand, or was there any sort of impetus to this?
Yeah, our brand, our Studio Blue brand, has evolved over time. We started off as strictly a game dev studio, and we just wanted to create fun games to put out there, and it just started evolving because as we encountered more members of the community and got more involved in the community, there was just a lot of questions, a lot of conversation back and forth. Well, how do you do this? Well, why do you do this? And we were fielding all the why questions. Well, why does it have to be this way? Why do we need to do it this way rather than this other way?
Yeah,
Methodology.
We'd see a lot of people like some random dude would show tutorials. Drifty would, do his earlier first impressions before it was him and T. And there was a lot of, well, do this, do this, do this. But the why wasn't getting answered.
So that's why we started branching out into, we started doing our Let's Play videos at the very beginning, where we would play through the game and then we would explain why something should be done or why something shouldn't be done. And that just evolved into presenting more theory and best practices. So that's what our YouTube presence has evolved into, is presenting the theory and best practices of game development. And we do it through our critical plays, but we also had creator classrooms. And on our forums as well, we would answer questions.
Right. The whole concept is teach a man to fish and he'll eat the rest of his life. And we're not taking away from the people that do tutorials. We're not taking away from the people that do hey, in this instance, do this, in this instance, do this. That is absolutely needed. But we found that as we kind of grew into the niche, and I'll turn it back over to Teal in a second, is that someone needed to teach the theory behind it. Why is it that writing should be a certain way? Why is it that you should craft dialogue, in a certain manner and avoid all those ums and uhs and those fillers that people have in real life, for example. And we found that our own experiences in the industries could help teach that.
Right. So at this point, we consider ourselves infotainment. So we're going to teach you something, but we're going to do it in a fun, entertaining way. So we have our YouTube videos where, as I said, we present theory and best practices. And we also do our Twitch streams. So we will play a game live and critique live and talk to the community and answer questions in a live way. And we use our AMAs as a way for people to get to know us better, because we don't want to be at such a distance. We're not some people on a remote tower in the mountain and you can never talk to us. That's not the kind of people we are.
Yeah.
So we like to talk with folks and have dialogues going. And so in that vein of being more infotainment, we're going to branch out into doing something like Udemy classes, because our creator classrooms were very good. People liked them, but they tend to get really long. And for a casual viewer, 2 to 3 hours long, that's a lot.
Yeah.
So we thought, why don't we just take these individual topics and slice them up and make a really focused video on these topics. So that's where we're going with that. And we're bringing back our podcast.
Yeah, so we're going to be doing our podcast.
Because our podcast, which is DLC not included, was on, and it will be on, topics that are relevant to game dev.
Right.
A lot of people like the podcast, and they're easy to digest. And you focus on 1 or 2 topics, and we're going to bring some guests in too to discuss certain topics. And we feel that that's also going to be helpful. It's going to teach people something. It's going to get you thinking, maybe about a problem in a different way and give you some answers that maybe you hadn't thought of.
Yeah, we started as a RPG Maker channel, but it became really obvious within the first year or so that we needed to move beyond just one engine and just go development in general. And that's where Teal's at now. So it's, we started with the RPG Maker community and we've never left it. We love this community.
Yeah.
But we decided that, we can reach more people if we don't be engine exclusive and we just teach game development. To answer that one formal education question before I turn it back over to Teal, I have a bachelor's of science in game development, and I'm dual bachelored along with MIS, so Management Information Systems. Teal actually has a master's in business. Oh. So we have formal education. As far as writing goes, I'm a published author, and she's my editor. So there we go.
So I just wanted to jump in for a second to talk about something you said, the idea of why. One, this is actually when I was looking for someone to do game critiques for our own channel, and the reason why both of you two were the number one choice. And the reason is that question, why? Not just say this is bad, this is good, but why this is bad and this is good. And there's the reason why, is I always look at it is people think of game mechanics as like machines, but it's not. Your game is the machine. Each mechanic is a cog. And something can be right in one game and wrong in another game and be identical. Yeah. Because the why. Yeah. Why was it put in there? Why was that thing? How does it fit into the whole? And when you start asking the question why, you start understanding what you're putting things in for, what the purpose of stuff is. And I think that's really important, and I just wanted to say a good job, and that's why I like you guys so much.
Yeah. Absolutely. In order to do something well, you need to know why, not just how, but why.
And that's that theory. So first off, thank you so much, Touch. We appreciate that. Thank you for bringing us on. But if people don't understand what theory means, theory is the why. Why does that work as opposed to something else given context? And that's our main job. We teach the theory.
Yeah.
And I do want to say one thing about our little mascot, our Studio Blue slime. We have been asked, where did this little guy come from? And the answer is that I, Teal, love slimes.
Yes.
I've always thought that they were cute. And when I first saw the version of slimes that the Atelier series had, they call them Poonies, I fell in love. Just absolutely fell in love. And many of the games I've played since then, most of the slime assets are just cute.
Yeah. There came a point, and this is why I made the comment about Archaea being part slime, is her and Teal were involved in a chat once, and they just started trading slime pics.
Back and
little
forth.
Slimes. And I was like, when I was watching that, I was like, this is adorable. So as a joke, we put a slime in one of our opening animations sitting on Teal's shoulder.
Yeah.
And then we switched over to the same image, except both Teal and the slime are wearing the Thug Life glasses.
Yeah.
And it just went wildfire.
So our little guy, our little slime is now very much synonymous with Studio Blue.
Yeah.
So,
it's it naturally kind of came about.
Yeah.
It did. It's just a natural
It's our
evolution.
branding.
Excellent.
Yeah.
I also just want to say thank you to all three of you for being on the podcast and giving us a little bit of insight into your thoughts and a little peek inside your brain, so to speak.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Always wonderful to be on something. I love to hear myself talk, so thank you for giving me the opportunity to do so.
And I do have one more question, just to ask. If you had one thing to say to our listeners today, what would it be?
We are 15 subs away from 1,000 subs on our YouTube channel. Please help. That was shameless, and I do not apologize.
The irony is that when this episode comes out, it'll probably be achieved.
I don't think I'm subscribed.
Oh! I'm injured. That's it. Wound forever.
Okay,
I can go help you get to 1,000. Let's see.
Oh gosh.
Create 13 fake accounts.
Just keep making games.
Yeah.
Just keep making games.
That's
it.
what I was gonna
just
say.
want to see people make games. Don't give up on stuff. Like, it's so easy to just give up on a dream, right? Even if you still I still have to work, a day job and everything else. If your dream is to make games, just work on it. And even if you work on it just a little bit every day, eventually maybe you'll make something, or maybe you won't, but maybe it will still enrich your life to have worked on it. So just keep making stuff.
Yeah, keep making stuff. Keep doing it.
Yeah.
You'll get better and better at it.
And my piece of advice is drink RPG Maker Cola. It will give you game development powers and design knowledge. But in all seriousness, I'd like to give this chance for Studio Blue and Touchfuzzy to promote or plug anything that they'd like to do right here. Where can we follow you? How can we follow you? We know how to subscribe now as well. We know we need to get to 1,000 subscribers, but yeah, how can we follow you?
You can follow Studio Blue on YouTube. We are Studio Blue Games, so it's Studio Blue Games is the name of the channel. And we're the same on Twitch. We stream and we post video content. And on all of those, you can find our Discord link. We'd love to have you guys. Our community is literally about critical analysis and offering feedback to make your project and you as good as it can possibly be and better.
Yeah, go follow their Twitter, Studio Blue. Studio Blue Games is it as well? Yeah, at Studio Blue Games as well.
Should probably start manning that at some point.
And then also the Discord as well. Just go and join the Studio Blue Discord and be part of the community and go watch those videos. Support. Go ahead.
And for me, if you want to hear what I have to say, generally just go to the forums and I will probably say something. Anything that comes out of the RPG Maker web, Twitter or Facebook is usually me. I don't have a personal Twitter. It's a personal thing for me that I work doing social media. I don't want to do it in my off time. But I do hang out on the Studio Blue Discord and on the Driftwood Discord. So if you ever want to ask me a question, just do. But also, every Wednesday at 4 p.m. Pacific, I stream on the RPG Maker web YouTube, just making a game. And come hang out with me and ask me questions. It doesn't have to be RPG Maker related questions. I will answer pretty much anything that I can get away with answering on a Digica sponsored show. And I hope to see you there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we do stream Monday evenings on the Digica YouTube channel as well.
Yeah, on the RPG Maker web.
Yeah.
That's the one.
YouTube.
Yeah.
And I will be in the chat there most times.
Right.
Yeah.
And Touch talks to everyone. He's Touch. He's awesome.
Yeah.
I do talk to everyone. It's my job to talk to everybody. So if you don't ever feel intimidated about talking to me. And I think Steel and Teal probably feel the same way. Just ask me a question if you want to ask me a question.
Yeah.
And
we try to make ourselves as approachable as humanly possible.
And inhumanly possible. More than human. Superhumanly approachable. Go watch Touchfuzzy's game dev streams and so that you can continue to pressure them into making a game.
Eventually I'll finish it. I have not finished the intro dungeon. I have made 9 episodes of this.
That sounds like a Trex, that's the game development beast. To top it all off, I'd like to plug or promote RPG Maker Cola, a podcast about game development and design centered around the RPG Maker community, and the RPG Maker Cola Discord. Go check it out and share your screenshots, your views, your hot takes, whatever. We try to keep a friendly environment. I'll put you in your place if you be inflammatory. No, just kidding. It's a very friendly place. I don't know why. I don't do anything. They're just friendly. Yeah, and that's all I have to say for today. And thank you to our guests, and thank you to our listeners for listening to this podcast. It's been a pleasure to have you here, just in the room, a little fly on the wall, just listening to these little conversations while you're working on your little indie games and your big indie games. With Studio Blue and Touchfuzzy, thank you so much. Bye, everybody. Bye.
Goodbye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, guys.
You like what you saw?
And that's it.
She's like, I got hit by Teal. She smacked me for that.
Can I stop recording?